So I read Bonds of Hercules, and I legitimately do not know what I read. Hello, my name is Grace, and today we are reviewing Bonds of Hercules, the second book in the Villains of Lore series. First one being Blood of Hercules, which was a video that I did, actually about last year, almost to the day, in January of this year. And now we are end capping the year with the second book, this one. I think I'm really depressed. I highly recommend, of course, that you go watch my previous video on Blood of Hercules, since this is the second book in the series. You know, over time, Blood of Hercules has sort of settled into so bad it's funny territory for me. Of course, I didn't like it as I was reading it, and then going back into my video to try and recap myself on what happened and how I felt about it then. Of course, it was so bad. And yet I still had fun with it because I was able to do research, I was able to go on deep dives on various Greek mythology, Roman mythology, history, and such like that. But with this one, I made the mistake of thinking this would actually be better. I guess with time, my feelings softened on Blood of Hercules, so I thought, okay, Bonds of Hercules will be better. Because Blood of Hercules was such a character that I thought, well, if nothing else, I'll at least have a funny character in this book. Like, this book was really funny, like really bad, but really funny. This was neither funny nor had character. It was just bad. And every time I think about it, I feel like there's just a gray void. It reminds me of when I had an MRI. I actually didn't close my eyes in the MRI. I just sort of let myself stare into the blank void of the inside of the machine. That's how it felt. I just can't really comprehend the depth of my disappointment with this book because, again, I made the mistake of thinking it would be better. I made the mistake of thinking that the plot threads that were teased at the end of book one would be picked up again in book two and followed through in some capacity. I can't believe I, wanted to have the promises fulfilled in the first book be fulfilled in the second book. I don't think I'm such an incompetent reader that I missed out on things, or I don't know. I really don't. When I finished this book, I thought, oh, should I even bother doing a chapter by chapter recap? I have no idea what just happened. Like, what's the point of going all the way back and recapping every chapter? It's like, well, I kind of want you all viewers to understand what I went through. So I am going to do a chapter by chapter recap. Let's just get right into it. And because this is the morning, of course, I can't drink wine, so coffee it is. Cold coffee it is. So, of course, like with the last book, I am going to open it all up and start with the dedication. This book is dedicated to all the people who spend their nights reading fan fiction about relationships that make them wonder, am I okay? This one's for you. Thankfully less offensive than the morally gray men one. But mentioning fanfiction here really brings to light what kind of book this is. Content warning. This book contains excessive violence, language, and a brief allusion to sexual violence. Please take care of yourself while reading. Okay. This is also a good opportunity to say that if you are the author, or friends or family of the author, or any affiliate of the author, this review might not be for you. This review is for entertainment and critique purposes only, and I will rag on this book very hard. As much as I would love to go into another Grace Greco-Roman myth fact fun corner, this time the 12 houses of Sparta haven't really changed much since the last time. Well, haven't changed at all really since last time. This time we do get a bunch of, I wish I wanted to film in my kitchen because it just didn't feel right to film in my sunny bedroom, so I wanted to film in my very cold lit kitchen. Remember those character stat charts that I mentioned last time? Well, this time we get them all at the front and we get little illustrations. I thought the illustrations were kind of fun. These are based off of real statues and they've been modified to match every character. None of these stats really matter, but I mean, I don't know. It's fun, I guess. Alexis doesn't get a stat chart. Oh well. All right, so the epithet here. Honestly, I wasn't surprised when I saw this epithet. Please forgive me for my pronunciation. Agathococological. adjective, Greek origin, composed of both good and evil. According to Greek mythology, humans were originally created with 4 arms, 4 legs, and a head with 2 faces. Fearing their powers, Zeus split them into separate parts, condemning them to spend their lives in search of their other halves. Plato, The Symposium. And I was like, yep, okay, all right, they're soulmates, whatever. Of course, we have a prologue. The prologue doesn't really matter at all because I totally forgot that there was a prophecy in the first one. I'm not going to read the prophecy. The prophecy doesn't matter. Let's just go. Let's just go to chapter 1. So we open up with chapter 1. Alexis has been with her parents, Hades and Persephone. If you remember from the last book, she's revealed to be the long-lost daughter named Hercules, even though Hades and Persephone have a perfectly good daughter named Melanoe right here. But Hades 2 came out a while ago and I still haven't played it. Anyway, she's been hiding out with them for 3 months ever since her marriage to Charon and Augustus. But she has been conscripted to the Assembly of Death, which is the chthonic Titan-slaying team. Titan's on my trigger! And so she is due for their first training session. Once she gets there, of course, everybody's there. Patroclus, I refuse to call him Patro, Achilles, Charon, and Augustus are all there, including, surprise, surprise, Drex is also there. Now, Drex, I guess we never really got his Olympian parent, but he is the half Olympian, half human classmate from when Alexis was in torture school. For some reason, the Olympians never accepted him into their ranks because Theros, who was the really minor antagonist from the first book, was his mentor. So despite having no evidence that Drex was involved in Theros' crimes, the Olympians kicked Drex out. So I guess population numbers don't mean anything in this book because they're never brought up. So they are back once again on their first day of school, except not really. This never comes back again. In this test, hosted by Artemis, for some reason Alexis nicknames arthritis, because of course she's very quippy and such in her brain once again. In this test, they have to basically avoid, it's like tag, they have to avoid the 4 guys, it's too many syllables to say all their names. They have to avoid the 4 guys, the 4 mentors, as they run in the woods, and I guess if they make it out of the woods without getting caught, they've won the test, and then they can choose who to team up with as their mentor. It's really confusing because there was something about like, I guess there's also a time limit. It's not really well explained. So I guess if you get out of the woods within a certain amount of time, you've won and you can choose who your mentor is. But if you get out of the woods not within the amount of time, then okay, you know what? I'll just read it to you because I was really confused because whoever catches them can become their mentor automatically. So of course the 4 guys are swinging their dicks around over it. Let me start here. Artemis is showing off her big dick or something by shooting a squirrel. Yeah, Katniss can shoot a squirrel with a bow and arrow, okay? It's not that crazy. Anyway, Artemis turned her horse to face us. Per tradition, in honor of the Phaedippides of the House of Ares, you will be hunted by our youngest members 25 miles through the woods. Was that blood on her teeth? They will give you an entire hour's head start before they come after you. Artemis scoffed, like she thought that was too much time. While you're in the forest, leaping and fighting back is forbidden. It doesn't matter how many bullets you take. She smiled. If you fail to make it out of the woods and are captured, you will be killed. Drex whimpered. Oh nice, Arthritis looks genuinely excited. Hades shot me a reassuring smile. I'll skip a few lines. After the woods, you can leap, Artemis said flippantly, like she didn't need to explain it because we'd already be dead by then. If you're uncaptured by the first morning light, you will be in the Assembly of Death, and you can choose who you want to partner with for your first mission. If you're caught, the 2 Spartans who capture you will fill that role. Yeah, so this is the part I was confused about because if they're captured, are they killed or are they forced into a partnership? Also, I was like, wait, so they can be killed? Because remember in the last book, I made a huge hubbub about how I thought these Spartans were completely, totally immortal 100% of the time and can only fall into comas. But here it feels like comas and death are used sort of interchangeably, and every once in a while there's a coma and every once in a while there's a death or I'll kill you kind of thing. I'm like, but can you actually die?
Did you die?
There is a difference between a permanent coma or a coma and full-on complete and utter oblivion and death. This frustrated me to no end because I didn't know whether or not to feel tension from any of the action scenes because they can't actually die, but the characters act like they're gonna die and whatever. We're gonna go on to chapter 2 because now in this book we get a lot more POV chapters. So this is Charon's POV and he's chasing Alexis through the woods and he briefly remembers back when he was 18 years old, he was signed up for the SGC, which is the Spartan Gladiator competition. Despite him not being like the full adult age of 19 per Spartan law or whatever, he was signed up at 18 by his parents, Artemis and Erebus. And even though he survived, survived and technically was able to complete his competition. He sustained so many terrible injuries that he had to crawl out of the arena, and apparently this was so bad, reputation-wise or whatever, or honor-wise for Artemis, that she's basically disowned him in all but name. So on paper, Charon is the house heir for the House of Artemis, but they haven't spoken to each other. They haven't interacted with each other like at all since then. We don't know why he was signed up at 18 before he was a full-fledged Spartan adult. Couldn't tell you. Couldn't tell you. So of course Augustus and Charon have teamed up to catch Alexis. Patroclus and Achilles of course are on their own team. There are also these two new characters named Hermos and Agatha. Hermos, I believe, is a Gorgon. So in my previous video I didn't really explain Gorgons very well. So Gorgons, it's Medusa's story is very interesting. You know, Medusa has two famous stories in which either she was born a monster along with her two sisters, snakes for hair, scaly skin, the whole 9 yards. They are Gorgons. But I forgot who it was. Was it Homer? Well, I forgot who it was. But then her technically recent story, not recent. Anyway, whatever, you know what I mean. Some guy, poet, I think it was Homer, he came up with the story that a lot of people are more familiar with, in which Medusa was a human seduced by Poseidon, or taken by Poseidon, if you will, whichever. Athena punishes her for defiling her temple, and she becomes a monster with the snakes for hair, the stone eyes, and such and such. So Gorgons in this world are apparently like their own creature species. Hermos has a bald head and only one snake. The image in my head was very ugly. One snake out of his head, and I thought, oh, if the snake coils up on his head, it'll look like a poop. Anyway, Agatha is an Empusa, and it's this one is a fairly not so well-known Greek monster who can shapeshift. So Hermos and Agatha, we don't know who their Spartan parent is. Like, they're just creatures, I guess. I don't know why they're particularly important. But they're actually trying to take the test seriously and capture Drex and Alexis and, you know, fire their weapons at them, because remember, there are guns in this world. Of course, Charon and Augustus are like, don't hurt my wife. How dare you shoot at my wife? And Agatha is like, this is the test. Like, we're trying to take this test seriously. And they're all fighting each other, but for some reason Alexis and Drex are somehow so bad at this test. Like, they all find her instantly. And I swear I remember what I read about Artemis's rules, that there was a no teleportation rule, but guess what? Alexis teleports, and she's injured. So teleporting while injured is extra dangerous, but Charon manages to grab her before she teleports again all the way back to Montana for some reason. So I guess at some point, Charon and Augustus have decided to try to be nice to Alexis to win her back, because remember, she's, as soon as like their wedding night was over, she bounced back to her parents' house and hasn't been back since. And they're so obsessed with her that they're like, oh my god, we have to do whatever we can to bring Alexis back. So when Charon and Alexis are in Montana, remember, Alexis is injured. So Charon is like, oh my god, I have to take her away over my shoulder and bring her back with me right now. But he says here, like, I have to try to be nice. He's trying so hard to be nice, but he's also like getting a hard on over it. It's kind of sad. You know what? I'll read a little bit to you on page 25. Remember, this is Charon's POV, so now the I first person is Charon. Here, let me help. I dropped to my knees. The pads of my fingers grazed across her calf. Awareness tingled at my arm, and I swallowed a guttural groan. Shifting to hide the inappropriate bulge in my pants, I wrapped the shirt around the top of her calf. Keep it together. She's fucking injured, you animal. As gently as possible, I tied it off in a knot. He took off his shirt, of course, to bandage her wounds. Thanks, Alexis whispered hoarsely. Oh, thanks. Alexis whispered hoarsely. Water melted off her eyelashes and dripped onto my cheek, and she was looking down at me with a strange expression. But my heart was in my throat. It was the first word she said to me in months. Moisture blurred my vision. I blinked it away. Tie her up. Grab her quickly. She's not expecting it. Throw her over your shoulder and leap away. Chain her to your side. I swallowed thickly. No, give her a choice. Let's ... get you back to base so we can bandage you up properly. I stood up to my full height and offered my hand. I'll leap us back. Be the good guy. Her expression became guarded. Fuck, I should have grabbed her. Why not? My neck tensed and I tried not to bare my teeth like a predator. Yeah, it just kind of keeps going like that. And like, for some reason at the end of this chapter, of course Alexis brings up like, why did you force me into this marriage? What are you trying to get out of it? Like, are you just trying to get out? Because apparently Spartan powers can get stronger after a marriage bond. She's like, why did you force me into this marriage? Like, what do you want from me? You just want your powers to be stronger. He's like, no, I really care about you, I guess. I'm sorry I forced you into this marriage, but I'm trying to be better. And Alexis is like, but why did you kill those two guys? Remember, Maximum and, oh God, what was the other guy's name? Oro? I forgot his name. Karen and Augustus like literally killed two innocent people to present to Alexis as like marriage gifts. And she's like, why did you do that? Of course, he's like, oh, they disgraced you. What did you expect me to do? And she's like, literally anything else except killing them. Like, he doesn't understand why she's not having it, and she doesn't understand why he's not understanding her. It's a whole thing. But for some reason, at the very end, Alexis says, it's just physical. This is just physical. And I'm like, what? What does that mean? Let me read this to you. I soften my features. We'll be better men for this is just physical, she blurted. I blinked. Icy fury doused me. What? ... The fuck did you just say to me? What the fuck did you just... High pitched is too funny. Alexis tipped her head back, jaw set. Blood continued to streak down her cheeks as she set her chin stubbornly, refusing to cower before my rage. I would have been impressed if I wasn't so fucking furious. Say it again, I said quietly. I fucking dare you. She bared her teeth, eyes flashing. It's just physical. I lunged. So I don't get where this is coming from. Like, Alexis, remember, for most of the past book, has been fairly touched her pulse as much as she expresses her interest in sexual imagery and in sexual performance, I guess you can say. She has been struggling with, like, wanting to be involved in sexual activity herself, kind of bouncing around calling herself asexual, which is a whole separate conversation because it's kind of annoying. Of course, at their wedding, she accepts, like, physical intercourse with them, but I don't remember if she liked it. Like, in the time that I remember it, it was just like, well, it turns out I killed a lot of people and I'm really sad about it. So she kind of uses them as a distraction, but she says it's just physical, but she hasn't been in their house for 3 months. I don't see anything here. Also, before I end this chapter, I want to bring this up. It's so funny. So I thought like Alexis had like really gaudy jewelry. Like, I thought, if I remember correctly from the first book, she had these sort of like ring bracelet combinations from Augustus and Charon as like wedding rings, wedding jewelry. I guess she only has one ring now. Like, she never mentions those like ring bracelets again. So I don't know if I don't think I'm misremembering anything. But now it's just like one diamond, a diamond ring. Apparently, it's a 10-carat diamond ring, which is huge. If you know anything about diamond measurements, like when I looked up what a 10-carat ring would look like most of the charts that I looked up on Google only went up to 5 carats. And then when I did finally look one up, it was like huge, like bigger than the finger. So really impractical for Titan slaying. Time for my trigger! Oh yeah, and I guess there was something about like betrothal jewelry from the last book, but it doesn't really, but like it was such a throwaway line that I don't remember. But I'm gonna scroll back a little bit here. Charon says, I still don't understand why you rejected the jewels. Were they not up to your standards? Augustus said humans once revered the Hope Diamond. He thought you'd appreciate the history. Did you want something nicer? So I thought Alexis was wearing the Hope Diamond, but I guess it seems to be here that like a throwaway line in the previous book, turns out Charon gave her the Hope Diamond. It doesn't matter. Why am I even bringing it up? Whatever. Charon's mad. Chapter 3, Alexis's POV. Alexis notices Charon's scars when he takes off his shirt to bin in her injuries and decides she's not asexual. She's just into tattooed, violent Machiavellian men. So remember, they're still in the woods or in Montana or whatever. Charon is getting mad because he doesn't want just a physical relationship, I guess, for whatever reason. Earlier in the book, Persephone, Alexis's mom, gave her a taser because Alexis, for some reason, can't shoot with her gun for shit, even though she's at apparently what sounds like point blank range, or almost point blank range between her and Charon. She can't shoot with her gun for shit, so she takes out her taser and electrocutes Charon. And for some reason, this bothered me a little bit because I was like, taser is actually a brand name. That's why it's capitalized here. I'm not gonna think about how like the taser company is still running in 2091, but I was like mixing up in my head like a stun gun. So a stun gun is the one that comes with like the 2 prongs that electrocute, that you have to like jam into someone. But the taser is the one that shoots out wires and electrocutes someone. But for some reason, this is a taser and I couldn't picture it. She doesn't mention like wires shooting out of the taser to electrocute Charon, which I thought was really lacking in description of like the essential actions of what's going on here. For some reason, of course, because Alexis has to make herself a fool, or the author has to make Alexis a fool for whatever reason. She can't turn the taser off. Now, I didn't look up how to turn off a taser, so maybe there is something about it that I'm missing, but she's like whacking this thing, trying to get it to turn off. Charon, big, strong, beefy Charon, can't rip off the wires on his own, I guess. At some point, I guess, I don't remember if like the taser finally shuts off or whatever, but when he's free of the taser, Charon still has electricity coursing through him somehow. I don't know if this is a Spartan thing. This isn't explained. I guess it just looks cool. He's getting all up in Alexis's space again. Augustus finally finds them, but he sees that they're getting really close. So Augustus is like, well, you might as well kiss. Like, I guess Augustus is sort of like a dom in this situation. So he gets Charon and Alexis to kiss. Alexis is still feeling like the electricity current running into her mouth as they're kissing. And I'm a little bit like, okay, cool. This is really weird. Whatever. I guess maybe it's supposed to invoke like the imagery that a lot of books do about like electrifying kisses. But I'm just like, man, Alexis doesn't know how her taser works. And Charon is not dead somehow or permanently comatized, because I'm pretty sure a shock like that might have like damaged his heart.
But did you die?
I'm distracted by the logistics. I'm not thinking about how hot it is. Oh my god. So Augustus, of course, offers to teleport Charon and Alexis since they're both injured, but Alexis just says fuck it and teleports on her own. But she ends up in an underground hallway, a mysterious underground hallway that she's never seen before, and hears a woman screaming. And despite her hesitation, she follows the sound. We cut to Augustus's POV now in chapter 4, a whole day later, and Hades says that he found Alexis like in the underground dungeon of his house or whatever, and now she is seeking medical attention in a Spartan hospital. Augustus wants to see her, of course, but Hades is like, no way, absolutely not. You are causing my daughter way too much pain, which is fair. Like, Hades is like one of the most reasonable people here. Augustus is feeling really down because, of course, he can't like walk past the chthonic leader. Poco, remember Poco, his animal protector who is a raccoon, Pom Poco, you know, like the Tanuki's big nut. Poco cheers Augustus up and walks on two legs with his little hand in Augustus's big hand and walks him back to the waiting room. I'm trying to think of like what Ghibli movie did Poco like fall out of and ended up here? Augustus remembers how he first met Poco. He met at the menagerie and was like, well, all these big awesome creatures, whatever. This little guy, I like this little guy. And Poco's been with him ever since. When Augustus like had all his hair burnt off in a creature monster attack, Poco was so sad that ever since then, Augustus has grown out his hair, and that's why Poco loves his hair so much. I'm like, this is cute, cool. This doesn't really get like expanded upon or brought in deeper later. Like, I don't know. There's just like, yeah, cool, this is a cool nugget. And then it doesn't make me feel any differently about Augustus because he still forced Alexis into a marriage and was so mean to her in the previous book. I don't know. I don't know what it is. Well, yeah, whatever. Anyway, they're back in the waiting room. Everybody's there, of course. The emergency sirens go off, and I'm like, oh my god, something's happening. And yet, like, no one really seems to understand what's going on. It's like, why are the emergency lights going off? Like, they're not running out of the building. It doesn't matter. But Patroclus, of course, insults them because, oh, you don't deserve Alexis. You treated her so badly. He and Charon fight in the waiting room. Achilles comes in and like every once in a while, Achilles, remember he has a muzzle on, he's described with an unlit cigarette in his mouth. And I'm like, yeah, okay, just like Mads Mikkelsen in Hannibal. And for some reason, every once in a while, the unlit cigarette would suddenly be lit. And I thought it was a continuity error, like the author and the editor both forgot to tell us when his cigarette was lit. For some reason, what I thought was a continuity error turns out to be somewhat important later, except not really. Achilles comes in, he has the newspaper or the news scroll or whatever. Turns out Medusa has escaped from the underworld. This time they capitalized the U. The underworld is the Spartan prison for super criminal Spartans. Patroclus is particularly snake racist about this, more on that later. And Charon reveals that despite him and Medusa being half-siblings by way of Artemis being their mother, apparently the Artemis bloodline is so freaking weird that despite the fact that Medusa is a chthonic daughter, she displays no chthonic qualities. She looks like she's a full Gorgon, and she has the powers of fate. Don't really know exactly what that means yet. Anyway, they don't do anything about it. They're still in the waiting room because Alexis is more important. And for some reason, it's here that he reads out loud that human body parts were successfully stitched onto a Spartan. Augustus takes this as a jumping off point to helpfully exposit to us, or to himself, I don't know, to the reader about how like Spartan regeneration works, except this just made me more confused. So I'll just read it to you on page 47. Interesting, Charon said as he read. An Olympian doctor has successfully stitched human body parts onto a Spartan. I grunted, not really that surprised. Human human physiology was adept at transmutation. I don't think transmutation is the right word here, but I don't know what other word it is. We could regenerate soft tissues like brains, eyes, and organs, but we couldn't regrow missing hard tissues, bones, and cartilage. If a bone was badly fractured, it would heal with time because most of the pieces were still intact. As a result, we couldn't regrow missing appendages, but our bodies could accept other people's. Immortal biology was nothing if not fucked up. Thousands of years ago, it was even a tradition for lower-ranked Spartan soldiers to slice off their fingers, hands, feet, and sometimes entire legs. They'd stitch them onto higher-ranked Spartans who'd lost their appendages in battle. It used to be the ultimate sign of respect and honor, but the practice was now considered barbaric. And then there's like a whole section of Charon and Pilko playing with pretend finger guns. Yeah, so this part really stood out to me because of course I'm trying desperately to figure out if these goddamn Spartans can die or not. But apparently they have limitations to their healing factor, regeneration abilities. This gave me a lot of pause. This thing about like the difference of regenerating hard tissue and soft tissue comes back later a little bit, but this gave me lots of pause in which like, what do you mean you can regrow soft tissue but not hard tissue like bones and cartilage? First off, the cartilage part will come back later because I was like, wait, how is cartilage considered hard tissue? Because I looked this up. Now we're in Grace's fun fact medical science corner. The hard tissue in human bodies, as far as I know, again, I'm not a doctor, is bones and teeth. And I'm like, okay, fair, whatever. But then we have things here, they can regrow organs and eyes and brains. And so I'm thinking like, okay, if a Spartan loses their entire arm in battle, does that mean they can regrow their entire arm without their bones in it? Like Harry Potter in the Chamber of Secrets, when like Harry had to like regrow all his bones in his arms because Professor Lockhart didn't heal his arm correctly. His arm was all flopping around. Also, if you remember back in all the way in book 1, how the whole first book's plot could have been avoided if they had parental blood tests. Remember that Patroclus said that Spartan blood is too quote unquote acidic. And I'm over here thinking now, like, because I remember all this because I'm a stupid fucking scholar of these books now. And then how would that work if they have attached human body parts? Because then if the blood is too acidic, because then wouldn't like the new human limb melt off or something? Because it's not just a matter of flushing out the human blood and filling it up with Spartan blood. It's also all the human cells and tissues that can't handle acidic blood. You know, these guys are so apparently so freaking advanced. Like, I'm not like, you know, I can't believe I did not realize until now. One second. Where's Hephaestus? I'm having a brain blast. I did not realize Hephaestus was not here this whole time. I'm so sorry, Hephaestus. Do I not know how to count? Aren't these all Olympians? Zeus, Hera, Athena, Hermes, Poseidon. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Who's not an Olympian here? Sorry, I think my brain's gonna explode now because I don't know what's going on. Okay, because, wait. Okay, wait, no. Okay, so I guess I completely forgot that Hades isn't technically an Olympian, according to mythology. Sorry, I'm having a crazy oof. Okay, well, I guess I'm so sorry. My Percy Jackson knowledge failed to clock that. Hephaestus isn't here. So I guess prosthetic limbs are off the table, and that, you know, I think that's why all the science is actually bogus, because Hephaestus isn't here. Hephaestus, I'm sorry, I need a moment. Hephaestus, I'm so sorry, I forgot you. Please forgive me. I'm so sorry I forgot you. This book was so stupid that I'm really happy that you've avoided it. Thank you. Goodbye. Right, okay, I had a major brain blast that I totally forgot Hephaestus. And I was about to say, well, look, I guess like cool Spartan prosthetics are off the table because Hephaestus isn't here. Science is not sciencing in my brain. Anyway, Alexis, get back to this stupid book. Alexis is free from the hospital and I guess despite having teleported away, I don't know if like she made it out of the woods or whatever. I guess she won because she chooses Patroclus and Achilles to be her mentors. Whoopee. Okay, whatever. Okay, chapter 5, we're in Alexis's perspective. All the kids and all the adults, because to me, they're kids and they're adults. All the relevant main characters are all sent to Augustus's house on Lake Como. For some reason, the leaders are like, hey, everybody stick together. Medusa's broke out of prison, so you all gotta stick together for safety. Helen, remember, she was rescued by Alexis when they were both kidnapped by Theros. So Helen was like, hey, Alexis, can you like stay in my room so I can feel a little safer? And of course she agrees. Charlie and Drex, remember Charlie is Alexis's adopted brother. And Drex, I guess, he's integrated into into the group really nicely. So they all go have a sleepover in Helen's room. And I thought this was really cute. I'd rather just this have all just been the four of them getting up to shenanigans, but fortunately not. So of course, Alexis can't sleep and starts walking around the house, and she finds, of course, every Spartan house has a fucking dungeon. She finds the dungeons in August's house. She finds Ceres. So I'm like, who the fuck is Ceres? So Ceres was never mentioned. I swear to God, she was not mentioned in the first book. But apparently, I guess in the interim between book 1 and 2, they found out that this woman, Ceres, was Theros' accomplice in killing all of his own siblings and half-brothers and sisters because he wants to be like the sole heir to the house of Zeus. And Ceres apparently was his accomplice. Alexis finds Ceres in the dungeon, bloodied and tortured, of course. And she questions Ceres like, hey, did you really kill all those children? Were you really Ceres' accomplice? But we don't hear Ceres' answer before we cut to the next scene. For some reason, this scene cut is relevant later, even though I thought it was a mistake. So in the next scene cut, all the men are here and Helen has woken up. Alexis has apparently let Ceres out of the dungeon. Alexis maintains that Ceres doesn't deserve to be tortured, that she's somehow innocent in all of this, and Helen is on her side. And of course, Augustus and Charon, like, despite their reservations, they agree to let Ceres go into Alexis's custody or whatever. Patroclus isn't having it, and remember, he has a lie detection ability, so don't ask me why apparently they didn't kill Ceres before, after Patroclus like uses his lie detection ability to interrogate her for information that would be accurate. But again, we don't know the limitations of his ability. Couldn't tell you why they didn't just kill Ceres before all this, because it's apparently been 3 months. Ceres is apparently so good at withstanding torture. I couldn't tell you. But Alexis is like, no, Ceres is scared. Ceres is stressed out. She's like dealing with stress. Like we can't interrogate her anymore. But eventually, after so much back and forth, Alexis lets up and allows Patroclus to ask Ceres one question with his lie detection ability. Remember, he has to touch her. He asks her if she ever helped Theros, and Ceres says no, and Patroclus knows this to be true. So begrudgingly, he lets her go, but he wants to interrogate her more, and it's a whole thing. But finally, everyone just goes back to bed because Helen and Augustus are like, everyone shut the fuck up, let's go back to bed. When they get back to Helen's room, Ceres is suffering from memory loss, and Helen and Alexis try to figure out ways to help her. But Ceres remembers one thing, and that is not to trust Zeus. Don't mess with Zeus. Side note, Ceres is the name of the Roman counterpart of Demeter, goddess of wheat and agriculture. I think they mentioned that Ceres was like a muse of some sort, lowercase m, but Ceres is not the name of one of the 9 muses, so doesn't matter. Nothing matters anymore. Chapter 6. It's time for Titan slaying training, and Alexis and Drex go to this underground training bunker where the 4 guys, also I guess Hermos and Agatha are here, but they don't really matter. So they're dressed up in this ridiculous ensemble, and I really have to read this to you on page 71. This underground bunker is huge. It's like basically a movie set with like fake buildings and trees. So we start here on page 71. 5 masked figures stepped forward from the fake trees. Each one of them held a short dagger. White tank tops, white exercise pants, and white ski masks completed their ridiculous ensembles. If they were trying to disguise themselves, it didn't work. Agatha crossed her arms, propping up her boobs, one of which was bigger than both of mine combined. Parentheses, a devastating observation. So I read that and I'm like, okay, wow, Backstreet Boys back, all right. Like the freaking horror slasher parody version of it. And okay, I know what spiritually the author was trying to get at with Agatha's boobs. Like her boobs are just like twice as big as Alexis's. But the way that it's phrased, one of which was bigger than both of mine combined, I'm like, so one of Agatha's boobs is bigger than her other boob? There's a better way to say that. You can just say her boobs are big, or like her boobs are so big that they're like they're 2 times the size of my boobs. So easy. You don't have to make it so complicated. One boob was bigger than both of my boobs. I'm like, so one boob is smaller than I got caught up on that line for a hot minute. It was crazy. The point of the training, again, is to, well, it's in reverse now. Alexis and Drex have to chase the 4 guys and Agatha. I don't remember if Hermes was here. They have to do the chasing now. Alexis and Drex are giving guns, and the guys only have dagger weapons. Nothing really comes out of the training itself, except Alexis, remember, is so bad at shooting guns. It's so bad that everybody is like, Alexis, how are you so bad at shooting guns? Remember, Alexis is half blind, in case you forgot, like I did. Alexis is half blind. Even if, like, her blindness was a or was not a factor. She had never used a gun before this. In the entirety of the first book, I cannot tell you that she ever used a gun in any capacity. So I'm over here like, guys, she's never shot anyone before. She's never used a gun before. And you're over here like, how are you so fucking bad, Alexis? And I'm like, she's never used a gun before. I've taken archery classes before, and perhaps the same, I don't know if like 100% the same principle applies to shooting with guns, but if Alexis had some time to practice, she can make up for her blindness. We don't know what kind of blindness she has in her one eye, because I think, what was it, only like 5% of people with vision impairment have like the complete pitch black darkness. We don't know what kind of blindness Alexis has. It doesn't matter what kind of blindness Alexis has, because it doesn't really matter. But like, it just really got to me. How come you suck so bad? I'm like, haven't we all figured out by now? Didn't we all learn in the last book that like Alexis grew up in a cardboard box in the snowy forests of Montana? I think all of their brain plugs are like not connecting with each other. Anyway, Alexis sucks at shooting so bad. Alexis is like, oh no, they can't figure out that I'm half blind and half deaf. For some reason, they haven't figured it out before all this. Whatever. They all wrap up the training session absolutely not getting any shit done. But there's only one shower room, I guess. For some reason, there's only one shower stall that comes with a door, because they installed it for Hermos' sake, because Gorgon prudishness or whatever, doesn't matter. So there's one shower room. Alexis takes the only shower stall with a door. Augustus and Karen are of course in the same shower room. They get all horny, saying all the things that they'll do to her. I want to read this to you because I think it bears reading. It might be too long to read, but I'll start here. Yeah, I totally forgot. August has a piercing down there, but that doesn't matter. Anyway, I'll start here. Shaking my head, I ran into the stall that had a door and closed it tightly behind me. Being the world's first introverted, perverted prude is surprisingly exhausting. I hastily stripped down. The divinely hot spray almost made me forget about the two naked men in arm's reach away. Almost. Are you okay in there? Karen crowed mockingly, an edge to his tone. I shouldn't have stared at his leg. He was clearly self-conscious about it, even though, if anything, the scars made him more impressive. Is the shower up to your standards, princess? Karen called out, clearly trying to get a reaction out of me. Don't call me that. I furiously scrubbed soap all over my sweaty skin. But it's true, Karen said. You're the princess of the great house of Hades. We know, I muttered under my breath. That's why you married me. The silence that followed was charged. That's not the only reason, Karen said sharply. I scoffed. Karen's pale feet appeared outside my door. Alexis, you're being a coward, hiding from... And you only married me because of my heritage. I married you. Karen's tone was dangerous. Because when I saw you, I immediately wanted to ruin you, ... body and mind. A primal part of my brain recoiled with horror. Save yourself. Get away from him. Is that what you want to hear? Karen asked harshly. Does that make you feel better, princess? No, it really doesn't. Turning off the water, I quickly wrapped myself in a towel and wrenched the door open. It's not just physical. Karen bared his teeth as he glared down at me, his naked skin glistening with water. If he was trying to look remorseful, he failed. He looked cruel. I pushed past him, my arm tingling where we touched, as I grabbed the first training clothes I found in a locker and pulled them on. When I was fully dressed, I turned back to him. Karen had found pants. I was a devastated woman. Parentheses, read pervert. I admit the urge to stalk you is, Karen wet his lower lip, unbearable. I took a step back. What was someone supposed to say to that? When it comes to you, my desires are even, ... darker than usual. His voice was gravelly. A queasy sensation returned. Augustus stepped out of the shower in a cloud of steam. A towel hung low on his hips. We both can enjoy control, he said casually. I tend to praise, while Karen is more viciously inclined. One could say he's ... cruel. I choked. Warning, danger, red lights flashed in my mind. Kill them and run before they can hurt you. Do you understand what we're saying? Augustus asked. His voice, velvet wrapped in steel, let's go! Yeah! Yeah, okay, I'm just gonna read that there. The chapter ends, they're like, oh my god, do you understand what we're saying? Do you understand what we want from you? And they yell at her. It's like, do you understand what we want from you? And Alexis is like, yes, I get it. Whatever, doesn't matter. Chapter 7 is Patroclus' POV. I refuse to call him Patro. Basically, this chapter is Patroclus being like angsty and brooding because Patro still wants Alexis, but she's married to Charon and Augustus. We get brief, teeny weeny tiny nuggets of his backstory that apparently he used to be like a pretty well-off kid living in the human world until Aphrodite picked him up, forced him into Spartan society. Apparently he was like bullied by the Gorgons in her house in order to toughen up. Why are there Gorgons in Aphrodite's house? Couldn't tell you. Patroclus wants to fight again, wants to fight Charon and Augustus again, but Achilles is about like 100% of his impulse control. He reins him in, takes him to the shower, forcing his stinky ass into the shower. They do the gay sex thing while Patroclus cries about like not getting Alexis. Like, we want to have her, because like apparently Alexis is the only one who doesn't like fetishize their relationship, even though like again Patroclus is like just projecting all of his insecurities onto poor Alexis. For some reason, like he's the only one who hasn't gotten that yet, and Achilles is like, sure, whatever you want. Like Achilles, like we see here that Achilles isn't as like jazzed to get Alexis as much as Patroclus is. Achilles is like 100% down for just Patroclus. In this version, we don't know how they met. We don't know how they fell in love. There's a surprising lack of backstories here. Couldn't tell you. Anyway, that's chapter 7. This is chapter 8. Finally, Alexis's first Titan assignment. Before she heads out, she and her mother Persephone have like this vague conversation about like their heritage. Apparently, in this world, Persephone's father is Iason, who was like this Greek figure. He was known to be Demeter's paramour in the story, so that's fine. It doesn't really matter. I guess in this world, Iason is some sort of creature. Not explain what kind of creature he is. For some reason, it says here that being born half creature is what made Demeter disown Persephone. Demeter, the woman who famously caused winter because she couldn't find her daughter and wanted to find her daughter so much that she stopped everything else to find her daughter when she was taken by Hades. Oh no, she's half creature. I must disown her. I mean, there is something to be said because Persephone says here that like Olympians don't like things that don't fit into neat boxes. There is something to be said here about this society who always seems to want to hammer down the nails that are sticking out. But to what expense are we trying to drive this theme? Because all of these like established Greek mythological figures are getting like character assassinated. Like their core stories are being stripped for the sake of this agenda that's so weak. Like this theme is so weak because it's never explored beyond like a surface level observation. Oh, Sparta doesn't like things that don't fit into neat boxes. Okay, so what are we gonna do about that? Nothing. We're not gonna do anything about that. This is why I'm depressed, okay? Whatever. Chapter 8 is really just like Augustus gives her a help beacon, like a pager that I guess can like signal to when if Alexis needs help. And despite already having like a bajillion weapons, Charon like gives her more weapons, and I'm just over here picturing like Alexis wrapped around with here with like guns and knives strapped to like belts all over her body, because that's apparently how strapped with weapons she is. Anyway, chapter 9. Remember, Patroclus and Achilles are now her Titan slaying mentors. But of course, you know, they're still rude and cold and condescending to her. They're in Rome. I forgot to mention, they're in Rome now, like real Rome, Italy, Rome, because there's been a Titan sighting there. Eventually, after being rude to her, also for a few chapters now, he's been calling her Alex instead of Alexis, and doesn't change his behavior when Alexis tells him multiple times, please don't call me Alex, because we know from little tidbits here and there that like apparently I guess her foster father called her Alex, and so she has a bad association with that name. But Patroclus doesn't respect her enough to, you know, respect her boundaries. Whatever. Eventually, Patroclus finally reveals something important. So I'm just going to start here on page 106. We want to make it up to you, M. how we acted during the crucible, Patroclus said slowly. We think the best way to help you is to ... Achilles stepped toward him like he was going to physically intervene. Help sever your marriage bond. Patro finished in a rush. Nyx gasped. Oh yeah, remember Nyx is here. Nyx gasped and Fluffy Jr. moved in front of me. Remember, Fluffy Jr. is her giant, weird dog companion. I took a shaky step back. This is about Augustus and Charon. Fluffy Jr. moved in front of me, again, crouching low and hackles raised. Patro stared at me, the man who spent the last year laughing with Charon as he called me spoiled and pathetic. He narrowed his eyes. Your marriage is making you miserable. No, my entire life is making me miserable. There was a difference. He rubbed roughly at his jaw. We've been researching marriage bonds for you. He looked at Achilles as he spoke. We think there's a way you can break the Spartan oath and effectively ... divorce them. The morning haze swirled, leaving a dense fog along with the ruined streets. What? I croaked. My mouth was dry, tongue heavy, mom spaghetti, heart full of lead. Patros stared harder at Achilles. From what we understand, if you use your ... blood powers, then you can ... He trailed off like he was physically unable to say the words. I can ... What? Patros' eyes glinted like uncut emeralds. I'm pretty sure if they're uncut, then they're still in the rock. Anyway, if you bring them to the brink of death, it will break your oath. Sludge filled my veins. You want me to ... kill Karen and Augustus? I said, feeling faint. You want me to murder your friends? I pointed to them. Kill your brothers. You got a point there. Achilles flinched like I'd struck him. Patro huffed. Don't be so dramatic. You don't actually kill them, M-. Just bring them to the brink. He snapped his fingers. They're strong. They'll recover. Then ... you'll be free. I'll never be free. Anyway, Alexis is like, why are you telling me this? What do you get out of this? And Patro's like, no other reason. They're treating you badly. And of course, Alexis is like, you just want me to be available to get married so that when you guys turn 26, you can both marry me and stay together. Don't ask me how apparently bringing your spouses to basically the brink of death is enough to break a Spartan marriage oath, even though they're supposed to be unbreakable. Don't ask me why this isn't like common knowledge. I don't know. I feel like this sounds way too easy. Oh, bring him to the brink. It's basically like Jon Snow's, it's like, I didn't see the end of Game of Thrones, but it's like Jon Snow technically dies, so Jon Snow is free from the Night Watch. But like they had to use like arcane religious rituals to bring him back to life. And yet like, oh, just kill your spouse and you're free. Like, I don't know. It just feels too easy. Whatever. Also, there's something that Alexis says that makes it sound like she's accusing him of being jealous because he wasn't chosen by Karen specifically. Yeah, she literally says, do you wish Karen could have chosen you? Because basically when she accuses them of like, oh, you only want me to get divorced so you can marry me. And like Patroclus is like, no, that's not it. It's like, psh, and they're back and forth. And Patroclus is like, fine, forget I ever wanted to help you. And Alexis is like, oh, you're just so jealous that like Karen should have chosen you. And then whatever. Patroclus calls her pathetic. And finally, again, remember, Achilles is like the kind of reasonable one here. Achilles is like, reins Patro back in after all of his insults. And he's like, remember, he speaks sign language. We don't know what kind of sign language he is. I know ASL, or the ASL alphabet, so that's what I've been doing. We don't know what kind of sign language specifically he's been using, but it's here. Achilles reins him in and signs to Patroclus like, hey, you're fucking things up. This isn't what you wanted. You're fucking yourself up here. And finally, Alexis is like, reveals here that she speaks back to him in sign language. And then Augustus and Patroclus are like, big shocked faces, like, when did you know Roman Sign Language? How long have you known Roman Sign Language? They call it Roman Sign Language. Yeah, you know what? Roman Sign Language. Whatever, fine. I'm not gonna get into like linguistic development here. So Alexis like finally shows her hand. She knows sign language. Chapter 10. Achilles is big mad. Patroclus is big mad. How long have you known Roman Sign Language? Why didn't you tell me sooner? Alexis admits like, I was scared of you. Like, of course, like duh. So she had to keep her hands closed. Before they fight more, remember they're in Rome, and as desolated as it appears to be, there are still people living there. A couple of kids pass by and they're like, yo, the Crimson Duo, oh my god, are you here to fight Titans? But yeah, a Titan arrives. The kid's gone, Titan arrives. It has wings now, so that's cool. So the Titan has wings now. Achilles and Patroclus like have their bullets, and like they shoot at it, but apparently it doesn't work. The Titan slams into Patroclus so hard, slams into a wall and breaks his neck. And then another Titan shows up. It also has wings. The Titans are clocking Alexis, and she sees that Achilles is going to Patroclus, of course, because Achilles only cares about Patroclus. He goes over to Patroclus and they lock eyes before Achilles teleports away with Patroclus, and poor Alexis is now dealing with the Titans, which is very big bad for her. Chapter 11 is really short. It's Achilles' POV. He quotes Dostoevsky and basically is like, Alexis is cool, but Patroclus is my number one babe, and teleports them to a hospital. And I guess he just wants to stay with Patroclus so much that he doesn't go back to help Alexis, even though they're in a hospital. Okay, whatever. Chapter 12. Okay, so like chapter 12 and the subsequent chapters that are about Alexis's fighting the Titans are really cool in my opinion. Sometimes I lose track of which Titan is which because there's no identifying features other than they have wings now. They both have wings. But this fight scene was actually pretty cool. Pretty much like my favorite scene, honestly, in the entire book, which is sad. Anyway, she has two flying Titans on her 6 o'clock in Rome. And somehow I think she's near the Colosseum, the real Colosseum this time. When she approaches the Colosseum, somehow there's like a park area or something, and there's a bunch of elderly people nearby. And for some reason, the elderly people are not running away at the sight of like 2 flying titans, but she jumps in front of them to defend them from the titans, pops the titans full of bullets. The elderly people are reciting the Lord's Prayer in Latin or something, and Alexis is like not telling them to run away. Finally, Fluffy Jr., he's been here the whole time. He leaps into action, attacks the Titan, because remember, he's not like the small fluffy dog. He's like a big wolf dog or something right now. Alexis like jumps onto the Titan's back and like stabs it full of daggers so she can use her blood torture powers, because like I think the activation is that like her blood has to touch their blood in order to torture them. Unfortunately, they were given Titan handcuffs or something like that, but she can't, of course, because Alexis has to be made a fool of, she can't get the Titan cuffs open to handcuff the Titan. I don't remember which Titan, but anyway, another like a Titan manages to like grab onto her and launch them up to the sky. And again, despite it being highly recommended to not teleport while injured, Alexis manages to teleport both herself and the Titan back down onto the ground, back into the park area next to the Colosseum. For some reason, the elderly people are still here, and one old lady is injured from flying debris. Alexis manages to get pieces of her shirt to give to the woman to press down on her wound, and she tells everyone else, hey look, just keep pressing down on the wound. For some reason, the elderly people are just like so like blown away by this. They call her a savior. They're all speaking in Latin. I guess I don't know where Italian went. Italian went back up the womb, I guess. The language womb. They're still not running away. Alexis finally decides to try and use the help beacon that Augustus gave her, but it's broken. Wow. Alexis is still trying to fight the Titans, popping them full of bullets. Again, it's unclear exactly like, you know, I feel like Spartans should have like, you know how like the Titans in Attack on Titan is like, oh yeah, aim for this specific weak spot on the back of their necks and that's how you kill them effectively. And I'm over here thinking like, man, they keep popping it full of bullets. And I remember in the last book, they pop it full of bullets and it's down. But these Titans have been popped full of bullets like 3 times already and they're still not down. They've been affected with blood torture powers and they're still not down. Like, is it because they have wings and they have like extra stats now? Like, I don't really understand what is the effective method to killing whatever, it doesn't matter. Percy Jackson had celestial bronze, man. Stygian steel, like whatever. Anyway, Fluffy Jr. is on one of the Titans. Alexis is on one of the Titans, but Alexis is like running out of energy. She tries to torture them with her blood again, but she gets pinned down and loses her left ear. She loses her left ear. She's like, well, I am about to welcome the sweet release of death. But then, of course, Augustus and Charon show up in the nick of time, take care of the Titan. They take care of them. Very, very easy. Barely an inconvenience.
Actually, it's going to be super easy. Barely an inconvenience. Oh, really?
But Charon sees that Alexis is injured and immediately slices his own ear off and sews it onto her head. Remember when I said that Augustus's helpful exposition on Spartan healing powers was going to come back later? This is the time we use the secret Mouska-tool. First off, cartilage isn't hard tissue. Much of a beautiful gesture as it is for Charon to give his ear to Alexis, I know that like the point of the gesture is to prove to Alexis that she can rely on them and that they can be together and that they are so devoted to her. But cartilage is soft tissue. I know like this whole gesture is supposed to be that like it shows to Alexis that he's devoted to her, that he'll do anything for her, there's nothing he wouldn't do for her, that kind of stuff. But again, cartilage isn't hard tissue. Because here back in chapter 4 when Augustus talks about it, bones and cartilage seem to be categorized under the hard tissues when he's thinking about it. And I know that there is cartilage in the joints of your bones to act as sort of like soft pads for like moving your joints and stuff, but cartilage as a whole, connective tissue, there's different categories of it. There's cartilage in your nose, there's cartilage in your ears. It's all soft tissue though. I asked my cousin, and he's a doctor. I had to text him that like, hey, cousin, I need medical knowledge, not advice. And he's like, shoot. And I'm like, what is cartilage? And he's like, cartilage is soft tissue and there's different categories. So I'm just over here like, damn, Alexis could have just healed her ear on her own if the regeneration is enough to basically regrow her ear. Here's the thing also, remember way back when it was like, oh, you turn 19 and then you go through the initiation ceremony, you become a full-fledged Spartan citizen and you get all these powers. And I guess there's no special ritual for that. Maybe you just grow up when you're 19, 20, you just get that instantly. You know, couldn't have thought of anything else instead of this really complicated, like, regenerative power limitation that doesn't make any sense because cartilage isn't hard tissue. Whatever. I'm gonna stop before I get too deep into this. Where are my notes? Anyway, we're in chapter 13. Karen is stitching his ear onto Alexis's head, and he's like, he'll do anything for Alexis. He'll always help Alexis, yada, yada, yada. Like, do you feel what I'm feeling, Alexis? I'm giving you my ear, girl. Kisses her, whatever. And Augustus isn't having it because he's like, guys, we're dealing with the Titans here. Finally, something reasonable. They're injured. They're fighting Titans. Augustus carries Alexis and is helping Karen as they, like, limp through the streets of Rome because there's apparently a Spartan safe house in the neighborhood or whatever. But they're confronted by the elderly crowd that Alexis helped, and Karen is thinking like, oh my god, what are these humans doing? The absolute audacity of them approaching us. Sorry, I keep hitting my mic. He uses the word hubris. He doesn't use the word audacity. He uses the word hubris. And I'm like, I think that's the wrong word. Yeah, here. Page 142 is really... Yeah, he uses the word hubris, and I'm like, yeah, so that's so weird. Yeah, it says here, humans didn't approach Spartans ever. Excuse me, I asked, stunned by her hubris. Another woman stepped up next to her and pointed to Alexa. She saved us, so what are you doing with her? Answer the question. We won't let you hurt her. So these humans are really concerned for Alexis because she saved them, even though she didn't really do anything. Well, I mean, she did save them, but she didn't tell them to run away or carry them out to safety. Anyway, you know, I'm not gonna judge Alexis's contribution here. She did a really good job in fighting the Titans, okay? And they're really impressed by her. Hubris is the wrong word, but Karen is like, oh my god, the audacity of these humans. But then Augustus is like, we gotta be chill, we gotta be nice, we promise not to be mean anymore. So Augustus is like, guys, don't worry, she's our wife, we're her husbands, we're getting her to take medical attention, like, I promise. But the crowd the humans are just so wowed by Alexis, they start calling her Angelos Rome. I don't know how to pronounce that, I'm sorry. Angelos Rome, which means Angel of Rome. Very briefly at the end of the chapter, Achilles finally shows up. Augustus yells at Achilles for leaving her. Achilles leaves. Chapter 14, Augustus is brooding, taking his partners to the Spartan safe house. There's only one bed. And also, while he's carrying Alexis in one arm and Karen on the other, apparently he had, like, leashed a chain around his waist to, like, drag the two Titans behind him. Anyway, there's a dungeon, of course, in this safe house, and the Titans are dumped there. He then spends like 3 pages of this chapter washing Alexis in the shower, heaping praise, heaps and heaps of praise onto her. And then when she's tucked into bed, he gets all mopey when Karen comes in to shower, and he's like, oh, we're not good for Alexis. We're not good enough for her. And Karen is like, no one is good enough for Alexis, so we have to protect her. Whatever, okay. Augustus gives them a combination of adrenaline and sleep medication to help them, and I'm like, I feel like that cancels each other out, but whatever. Like, you could have just said, I gave them some medicine, but then you have to say adrenaline and sleep medication, and I'm like, that doesn't feel like they should be mixed together. You know, that's the problem with this book sometimes, is that, like, honestly, the less the better, because I didn't have to know about, like, Spartan regenerative healing limits, because then there's this, like, insane limit of, like, soft tissue okay, hard tissue not okay, and I'm like, can they regrow their arms without their bones, and can they, like, they can heal their brain but they can't heal their skull or something like that? Like, there's implications when you don't understand, like, oh, I want to add this, and, like, but if you add it, there's a ripple effect. Now I'm thinking about, like, Harry Potter's, like, floppy arm, and then here I'm thinking, like, oh, instead of just saying medicine, then it has to be adrenaline and sleep medication. It comes up so much where it's like one word would have been way more effective than, like, 3 words that makes this much more complicated. Whatever, this is already published and this is already physically in front of me. I can't change it anymore. Anyway, Augustus takes a whole other page and a half to wash and dry himself, and Poco's here too. Poco has to be tucked into bed too. Chapter 15. Skip. Alexis's POV, she wakes up. 3 days later, wakes up. Karen is slobbering all over her in a horny way, and there's, like, this non-penetrative sex scene. Out of context, I probably would have liked this more. She has this emotional reaction about seeing Karen's missing ear. He's missing his left ear. And Karen is like, it's not that big a deal. You needed an ear. I have an ear. And wanted to show you that this is my apology. I want to give you a piece of myself. But Alexis finally gives up the fact that she deafened that ear, and that apparently even with, well, of course, like I would imagine, like since she was injured in like the fight that her foster parents gave her, I would imagine it's like her eardrum, like all the way in there, that's like perforated or damaged or something. So if it's only like the outer part of your ear, then like that doesn't really fix her deafness, which is kind of cool. Like I thought it was kind of cool that like Augustus giving his ear doesn't magically like heal her deafness or anything like that. Still kind of sucks, you know, that whole soft tissue versus hard tissue argument. She reveals to them that she's actually deaf in that ear, so like his sacrifice didn't really like lead to anything, so she feels really bad about it. But they ask her, it's like, whoa, like what happened, like what do you mean you're half deaf? And she lies, oh, she was just injured, but like they can tell that she's lying or whatever. For some reason, it's in this moment when Alexis realizes that she's not scared of them anymore. Okay, and I'm like, great, so remember when you swore vengeance in the last book to make them pay for what they did to you? Can we get on that now? Can we get on that now? Nope, we're not getting on that now. Anyway, chapter 16. They're still in the safe house. They have like this whole sort of back and forth between the three of them about like their dynamic seems to be unhealthy, but Alexis thinks that something is changing or whatever for some reason. Anyway, they head back to Augustus's house on Lake Como. The four men confront each other about Achilles leaving Alexis behind. Alexis steps into the fight to try and break it up, but then she accidentally gets an elbow to the chest. And then when she gets hurt, like Karen and Augustus realize that they can feel her pain, but Alexis can't feel their pain. She's like, I forgive them. It's like, just stop fighting. Like, I don't want, like, we have to stop fighting. So Augustus and Karen are like, how are you letting them off so easy when she was left behind? But then Alexis declares that she does not want to treat them the way that she's been treated. And she gathers up all their animals, like all their animal protectors, like a Disney princess singing to all the animals to follow her. She gathers up all their animals and like walks away. Hell and Hound are both of Karen's animal protectors. Somehow they can like speak a little bit now, or I guess she's the only one who can understand them a little bit. Anyway, she takes all their animals and leaves. It's like, you've all been bad, I'm taking your animals. I thought it was quite noble of Alexis here to try and take the high road and be like, look, I won't treat others the way that I've been treated. But this doesn't really follow through in any meaningful way. She kills a lot of people later. Chapter 17. I'm going really fast because I want to get as much done as possible. It is Karen's POV. Karen is brooding while he's brutally brutalizing a punching bag. Of course, knocks the punching bag off the chain or whatever, I think. So Augustus calls him over to show him like this. I guess on the internet there's now footage of Alexis's fight with the Flying Titans. And I guess all over social media now, or whatever is left of social media, Alexis is so popular now. Angelus Ramai. There's like fan art of her now. Karen and Augustus are like, oh my god, how dare the humans. They think they're claiming her, but we don't want to share it with anyone else. Super jealous. Unreasonably jealous. No one can have her except us. I want to read this portion because it's so funny. While he's watching the footage, the videos with Augustus, he's like talking at the video, half to Augustus. But then there's this part here. I'm going to start on 177. Without help, Alexis had incapacitated a Titan that was more powerful than any we'd ever seen. It was limp behind her. She reached for her cuffs. She's doing it. The camera pans to the side. The other Titan was getting to its feet. No. Alexis's hands slipped as she desperately fumbled with the cuffs. She didn't have time and she was badly injured. Run! I yelled at the screen. I don't know. I thought it was so funny that he yells at the screen telling her to run. Like she's a horror movie protagonist who's about to go through the door where the slasher monster is behind. But for some reason we get this whole recap of the fight, even though we just read the fight. So it's just a lot of pages of my time wasted. Anyway, so I'm just gonna go ahead to chapter 18. It's Alexis's POV, but it's Karen who approaches Alexis, pretty much is trying to beg her to accept a gift from him. And Augustus and Karen are trying to apologize, blah, 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 promise to be better, blah, blah, blah. Alexis basically like runs away from them and like teleports into a closet to like lock herself in the closet until they go away. Hello, sorry for the sudden change. I ran out of time in the first portion of this video to film. I believe last time I left off was chapter 17 and Karen was going all Dora the Explorer at Alexis when watching video footage of her and her encounter with the Titans. And at the end of that chapter, Augustus and Karen reaffirmed that Alexis is theirs and they need to go get her, yada, yada, yada. So now we're up to chapter 18. Karen and Augustus, this is Alexis's POV. They're both approaching Alexis, begging her to accept gifts, begging her to talk to them. Very pathetic, honestly. But Alexis isn't having it. She basically runs away from them and hides out in a closet for a while. And this entire chapter is just Alexis and Nyx and the two hellhounds in the closet, like talking and playing playing like word games. That takes up a lot of time and doesn't go anywhere and never comes back again. Saris is still here. Remember Saris? She is the person that Alexis released from prison for believing that she wasn't involved in Theros' crimes in the first book, even though she wasn't in the first book at all. Saris is still here, and she's been writing notes in books and in notebooks trying to figure out her lost pieces of her memory. But Alexis finds notes pertaining to her, Zeus, and Vico. And for those of you who don't know, at the end of the first book, a man named Vico was brought forth, and turns out he was some sort of caretaker for baby Alexis when she was still living in the House of Hades. And he was the one who said, hey, I tried to save baby Alexis after that Titan attack, and then something happened and I lost my consciousness, and then she was gone and I thought she was dead. And apparently what he said was enough to get past Patroclus's lie detection ability, and so far we haven't seen him at all in this book. Spoiler alert, we never see him at all. But very helpfully, Saris is like, Zeus plus Vico, Hercules assassination? Those are what her notes say, and, you know, I thought, wow, it's very convenient. I don't recall Alexis making much of a big deal about this. You know, the pieces are literally all right in front of her, and all she has to do is click, 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 and whatever. It doesn't happen. Going forward to chapter 19. Remember, everybody is still in Helen's room doing a big sleepover, but Patroclus is rudely knocking on the door, interrupting Alexis. All the while, Helen is like sleepwalking, except instead of sleepwalking, she's like sleep aiming her gun at the door because Patroclus is being so loud. But of course, Alexis doesn't want Helen to fire her gun, so she sees Patroclus and Achilles, of course, in the hallway outside. And despite having forgiven them in front of Karen and Augustus, she's still not really too happy about being left behind in Rome, and she doesn't really want anything to do with them at the moment. But Patroclus is insistent that she go through with this divorce plan, and somehow manages to stick a needle in Alexis to get some of her blood. Chapter 20. Chapter 20. This is Augustus's POV. This one's so weird. I guess during the same time as that's happening, Augustus and Charon, of course, they're torturing an Olympian doctor for information about the mutating titans, but the doctor doesn't have any information, so that's a bust. For some reason, the transition in this chapter is just so weird. I kept trying to go back and forth on it. They go to Montana and they go to Alexis's former trailer park. They break into a random trailer and interrogate the couple that's living there, pointing guns at them, of course, about like Alexis and Charlie, like, did you know these two kids who used to live here, kind of thing. They see signs that like the husband is likely abusing the wife, accidentally kick the man so hard in the head that he's like leaking cerebral spinal fluid or whatever. It was an accident or an accident. The woman eventually reveals that the entire trailer park apparently has sort of been dissuaded from helping Alexis and Charlie due to some rumor or some vague threat that something bad will happen to them if they ever help these kids. But other than that, no specifics. One sentence of like brief summarization of like them interrogating other inhabitants of the trailer park. Plus, we get a cameo from Paul the shovel guy, my man. They finally come upon the local Satanist trailer. Now, way back in the first book, back when Alexis and Charlie were living here, there was a one-off line about like the local Satanist that helps them out sometimes. So apparently this was the only guy who was allowed to help Alexis and Charlie, or he made himself the only guy to help Alexis and Charlie. He comes out of his shell and he's like, can I help you guys? Totally not afraid of them despite having guns pointed at him or something. Of course they try to shoot him. He teleports away. Ooh, this would have been really cool if this ever comes back, but it doesn't. Augustus just mentions that like this guy's not an Olympian, but he's not Chthonic, he's not Spartan, he's something more powerful, more ancient. Never see him again. Anyway, they go to prison. I don't know when they decided this. Never, like, keep telling you, the transitions, especially in this chapter, is like bonkers. It's like, why are you going there all of a sudden? When did you decide to go there all of a sudden? Okay, whatever. They're in prison. They're in a prison, presumably because they decide to pick up Alexis's former foster father, who used to abuse her when she was a child. Anyway, scene break once again. They presumably dumped the foster father in the dungeon, of course, but they haven't killed him yet out of respect for Alexis. Then they decide to do a comedy bit. Augustus and Karen try to act natural when Helen and Alexis pass them in the hallway. There was like one weird mention about how like Augustus pays like over $1 million to ship raccoon cookies from the other side of the world because global supply chains no longer existed. Whatever. Augustus gives Alexis a titanium graphing calculator with a built-in voice recorder. This is the surprise tool that will help us later. But apparently everyone's so wowed by this graphing calculator because global supply chains are decimated. I guess metalworks are out, factories are out. Can't tell you about where the chips are being made. Can't tell you where the tech's being made. Yeah, like apparently at some point in the beginning of the book, even like Drex and Alexis are wowed by clapper lights, you know, clap activated lights. They're so wowed by that. So then if the global supply chains are down, if the factories are down, if the chip makers are down, is anyone mining the metal to make these things? I couldn't tell you. I'm gonna lose my mind if I think about that, so let's forget about it. And we're gonna go off to chapter 21. Alexis and Ceres have this long, unproductive conversation about like recovering memories, fate, or whatever. I don't know. Look, if it were important, I would put it in my notes. Anyway, she sees this symbol in Ceres's notes, and maybe I can hold it up to you here. It's this weird symbol here. For some reason, when Alexis like tries to look back at it, and like ask Ceres about it, this symbol has disappeared. Whatever. Alexis is summoned by a servant to the dining room, and Augustus and Charon reveal Achilles and Patroclus tied to chairs. You know, despite having forgiven them earlier, Charon proceeds to then start torturing Patroclus for again leaving Alexis behind in Rome. And Alexis is like, stop it, please don't torture them. But they're like, no, you don't have any weapons, you can't stop us. But for some reason, this is the time that Alexis decides to reveal Nyx. And Augustus is like, what the fuck? And now we go on to chapter 22. I don't know why this isn't one big chapter. Whatever. Like that first section with Ceres and Alexis could have been onto another scene, and then this whole dining room scene could have been one long chapter, but it's broken up here. Chapter 21, chapter 2022, chapter 21 and 22. We're still continuing this scene. Charon and Augustus are like, whoa, like, why do you have an echidna? They're so dangerous. Their venom can put you into a permanent coma. They're like just as ranked as dangerous as Titans are, like kill on sight. Where did you get that? Where did you get that? Where did it come from? How long have you had that? Couldn't tell you why Nyx has decided to reveal herself now. Because Alexis does have blood torture powers. I don't get it. Whatever. They're like, put the snake down. We'll take care of it. And Alexis is like, no, she's my friend. I've had her this whole time. She's never bitten me, yada, yada, yada. They're still on their redemption arc, quote unquote, to try and like respect Alexis. So they're like, okay, fine. Out of respect for you, we'll let you keep the snake. Well, anyway, remember the point of this meeting, back to the point of this meeting, is that Charon reveals, because remember, he can see and hear everything that his hellhounds do, so he knows Patroclus let Alexis in on a plan to try and like murder, divorce Charon and Augustus. So he and Augustus take Alexis's blood that was taken from the syringe, remember earlier, by Patroclus, and they drink it, and they also like cut their own gut. Like, okay, so it's so disgusting. Remember, the way that Alexis's powers apparently work is that the target's blood has to be mixed with her blood, so they can't just drink it. So what they do is that they do drink the blood, but then they also cut their own gums to let her blood mix with theirs. Alexis is trying to hold back from letting the power torture them, but they're trying to goad her, they're insulting her, trying to get her to activate her powers, like calling her pathetic and weak and yada yada yada. This is exactly what you want. You have to murder us. And I'm over here like, but they're not actually going to die, so what's the point?
But did you die?
What's the point of like saying, oh, you have to kill us, Alexis? You have to murder us, Alexis. And I'm like, guys, you're gonna be fine. What's all this then? What's all this for? You're gonna be fine. Like, I don't understand like the difference between like a permanent coma and death. The thing with comas is that you can get out of them. And apparently with how advanced the healing in the society is, I'm like, well, you know, at some point the Olympians are gonna come up with a special magic get out of your coma juice or something. I don't know. Whatever. Finally, she activates her powers, of course. And they're like, oh my God, we're so proud of you, Alexis. You deserve better than us, Alexis. Like, blah, 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 blah. Of course, Alexis isn't super down with murdering, trying to be a better person, I guess. And Nyx actually is the one who helps calm her down enough to try and rein in her powers. And then this activates, and you wouldn't believe it, a second power in which Alexis has like magic healing hands. So her healing power reverses, I guess, the damage from Augustus's and Charon's torture. And like Charon is like on his knees, they're on their knees, Charon is on his knees, kissing her feet. Okay, kind of gross, but they're like, Alexis, why didn't you go through with it? Why didn't you go through with the murder divorce? And for some reason, it's here that Alexis decides that maybe they should give their relationship a real shot. Yeah. Haha. Okay. Since when? Here I was looking forward to Alexis's Joker era, swearing revenge on the people who've wronged her. And then all of a sudden, we're like halfway through this book with nothing of serious note happening. And Alexis decides in this course somehow that, oh, it's just a physical relationship too. Let's give this a real shot. And I'm like, since when? Since how? Since why? Who's changed enough to get you to change your mind this much? I can't even. Whatever. Chapter 23 is so short. It's just Karen watches Alexis sleep and is brooding. It's like only like 2 pages. And then chapter 24 is pretty much the same thing, but from Augustus's POV. He's kind of freaking out a little bit because his powers are changing. I guess because of the marriage bond with Alexis, his powers are getting stronger, but he's crying blood all the time. And I'm just like, okay, whatever. It doesn't really feel like his powers are changing. It just seems to be getting stronger. And I'm like, okay, but that doesn't really come up. Well, it kind of comes up later, but not really, because it's just whatever. It doesn't really matter. 24 is so short as well. So it's just the 2 guys brooding, blah, 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 how much they love Alexis, whatever they would do anything for Alexis. They're so devoted to Alexis. Alexis is so cool. Alexis is so strong, so cool, so beautiful, so radiant, so perfect. Oh, okay. Can't handle this anymore, guys. I really can't. I can't handle this anymore. This is just like pedestal worship of Alexis. They don't really know her. I don't really know her. I thought I knew her in the first book back when she was like fantasizing about German mathematicians, and yet we only got like 1 mention of Karl Gauss, and I cannot believe I'm saying that I miss him. I miss Karl Gauss, because at least that told me something about her character a little bit. But then here we have these 2 guys like literally falling off of their feet for her, falling to their knees for her, and I'm like, okay, great. I'm really happy that she's so courageous to save these people from the Titan attacks. And these guys are like so find her to be so amazing enough to like respect her. And yet how can she be better at Titan slaying? How can she like control her powers? How can she like solve the mystery of her own attempted assassination? We're at a snail's pace here at around the halfway. This is the halfway point now, because there's about like 52 chapters in here. We're up to chapter 25 now. We have like, so far in this halfway point, we've had like no progress on like solving the mystery of her attempted assassination, figuring out her powers. Are her powers getting stronger? Are her powers getting out of control? Now she has this new healing magic, but she doesn't really train with it in any meaningful way. She doesn't talk to her grandmother, Demeter. She only has a couple of like vague conversations with Persephone. She only has a couple of vague conversations with Hades. And with them, it's always like vague stuff about how like, don't show your fear, like don't let fear control you, or you know, vague stuff like that about like their power. And I can't even remember because it's not anything like concrete or specific enough in relation to their family. So chapter 25, Alexis wakes up from a horny dream, and turns out it's the morning of the initiation death match / massacre. If you remember all the way from book 1, Alexis was plopped right into the middle of this initiation. They call it massacre when really it's a death match, in order to be initiated into torture school, aka the Crucible. And if they're able to survive the Crucible, aka torture school, then they can graduate and become full-blooded Spartans. I was really confused about this because I was like, wait a minute, this is the initiation deathmatch? I thought we were doing the gladiator games or whatever. Has it been a whole year since Alexis did her initiation deathmatch? Because it didn't feel like it, but I guess it must have been. Or maybe it was, or maybe it wasn't, because I thought she graduated like 3 or 4 months after torture school, right after she was married, and then there was 3 more months after that. I couldn't tell you. So for some reason, we're having another death match that none of the main characters are participating in directly. They're just watching it, instead of the gladiator games that we were promised in the last book. Whatever. So apparently there's a flag ceremony now. I don't recall there being a flag ceremony in the last book. Luckily, we don't take a whole lot of time because only 3 people carry their flags. Or maybe it was skimmed over and I don't remember, but it doesn't matter. Augustus and Charon and Alexis take their own house flags in a loop or something. I don't know. It's like vague. A vague like running around with the flag kind of deal. It is kind of like a nice touching moment where like Alexis is holding the flag of her house and she wants to make her family proud. It would have been nice if, you know, this was what the story was about, but it's not about that. So the initiation / death match kicks off, and Karen and Augustus are watching these 100 boys fight each other to the death. They ask Alexis like, oh my God, like this looks so brutal. How did you survive? I guess they didn't watch the other one. I don't remember. And she replies that Nyx helped her, you know, because she cheated, because technically weapons aren't allowed in the initiation deathmatch. because Nyx would have counted as a weapon, whatever. Anyway, of course, Karen and Augustus are so grateful to Nyx for helping her survive, blah, blah, blah. Also, there's this really weird bit, like literally between page 246 and 247, where, okay, yes, there's 100 boys. Was it 50 boys in the first, in Alexis's class, in Alexis's initiation? Whatever. I don't remember if it was 50 boys or if it was 100 boys, but in this one, there's 100 boys that are in the initiation deathmatch. Going to page 246, it reads here that there are 10 boys left standing and 83 broken bodies splayed around them. And I'm like, wait, 100 minus 83 equals 10? What happened to the 7 bodies? Like, were they eaten? Whatever. These kids don't matter. Zeus comes down from the stands and is like, great, another initiation deathmatch done. Guys, we promise that Medusa will be captured soon. So we will literally move up the Gladiator Games to tomorrow instead of 2 months from now. And all the Chthonics must stay in the Dolomites Coliseum because you will be questioned after your rounds over the course of the 13-day round competition. Everyone is like, whoa, 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 whoa. The SGC is supposed to be in 2 months. What do you mean we can't leave? Blah, blah, blah. Everyone, whatever. And I'm just like, okay, great. Come on, time's a wasting. We already wasted too much time before we get to this gladiator competition. Because I've said before that I think Jasmine Moss's strong suits are in her action scenes. Spoiler alert, I will leave this book very disappointed regardless. Whatever. We're going to chapter 26. This next part, guys, is going to be a doozy because I made the mistake of looking forward to a tournament arc. That was my mistake. Whatever. Chapter 26. You guessed it. There are dungeons under the Colosseum and all the Chthonics are taken. Everyone's paired off. And of course, you guessed it. There's only one bed in the cell. Also, the animal protectors are still here. So imagine I'm imagining like a freaking prison cell. You have like 2 hellhounds, a raccoon, a snake, another like wolf-sized dog, 2 big like hulking strapping men, and a teensy weensy little girl about the size of my pinky named Alexis. Even with the attached bathroom, it still feels wildly small to me. We don't even get the size description of the bed because when eventually they all sleep together, share the bed, don't actually sleep on the bed, sleep wink wink. They like cuddle together in this bed and I'm picturing it like a twin size mattress. And I think that like Augustus is falling over ass backwards because we don't get a size descriptor for this bed. Somehow they're all squishing onto it. Whatever. Fluffy Jr., remember he's still here, hasn't been feeling so well. He has like a giant lump on his back. And even though like they tell Alexis, Augustus and Charon tell Alexis like, hey, he could be evolving, but also this could just be cancer. And they're very adamant that this is probably just cancer. Alexis suggests that she'll sleep in the bathtub, but Augustus and Charon aren't having it. Chapter 27. Again, this is such a random place to like break the chapter because the scene hasn't changed. They're still in the same place. They have a horny moment together. Couldn't tell you what it is. I don't really care. They don't go all the way. I guess Augustus and Charon sleep in the bathroom and Alexis takes the bed. She decides to record a diary entry into her voice recording graphing calculator. I feel like what she says here doesn't exactly shed any like revelation or any like deeper insight into what's been going on, like how Alexis has been perceiving things, because we are already in her head. This is already a first person account. So like what she voice records in her diary isn't really eye-opening or anything like that. She's just like, shit's happening and I don't know what to do. I'm like, same girl, I'm reading this book. Also, fun fact, one of the guards' names is, he's a son of Poseidon and his name is Vorax? Vorax? We can't take the T out of vortex, whatever. Forget about all that. Now it's chapter 26. So once we got up to chapter 26, I'm like, I knew I wasn't in for a good time with the SGC because chapter 26 is about 7 pages of Alexis seeing and describing the other Olympian leaders, Poseidon, Hera, Athena, Demeter, Hermes, and Dionysus. And I'm over here trying to read all the descriptions and being like, okay, so which one of you guys was taken from the supergiant Hades games? Of course, like Apollo, whatever, bronze skin, blonde hair. But then I saw Dionysus described as brawny black man with long wavy purple hair that matched his suit. And I was just like, okay. I'm not saying anything. I'm just like, it could all just be because like, oh wow, they're just similar because like the Greek gods have like their base descriptors that have been shared all throughout mythology. But you know, with Hades, Supergiant Hades, and this Bonds of Hercules series, I'm like, And I mentioned this before on the last video too, but like whatever, it doesn't really matter. I'm probably gonna go play Hades 2 after this. I've been putting it off for so long because of school. Anyway, that's just 7 pages of description that doesn't really matter because none of these characters really come back later. Cool, 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 cool. Wasting my time. So chapter 29 is where we finally start the opening ceremonies of the SGC, and I cannot even begin to tell you how dull this was to read because like the last chapter, it's just Alexis seeing what's happening and everything is happening like one thing at a time and with the same amount of meticulous detail, even though none of it comes back later in any meaningful way. So, to try and make this long ass chapter short, the opening ceremony explains how the SGC works. All the chthonics, I don't know who is or is not counted in these games. For some reason, the chthonic leaders are also, I guess, required to participate in these games, even though I thought it was just like all the kids or all the non-leader chthonics, because I thought it was a matter of like no one tells the leaders what to do. Whatever. I guess the leaders have to participate in these games too. Everyone has to come up to the altar, and Zeus is there with a pair of 6-sided dice. Whatever number you roll with these 2 dice is the amount of labors you get. However, labors is not the right word because the 6-sided dice actually determine how many opponents you have to face. That is literally the incorrect word. Look, I can tell you why the word labors was used because labors of Hercules, but it was very disappointing when I actually got to Alexis's round, but we'll get there when we get there. So like I mentioned earlier, the chthonic leaders are also involved. Everyone has to strip off their shirts and expose their chests to show to everyone how many scars they have. Because whenever you lose your SGC round, you have to accept these circular scars from this thing called like a Vulcan metal brand. So Vulcan is the name of the Roman god of the forge, Hephaestus's counterpart. This type of metal, when forged into a weapon, I guess, is the only thing that can leave a scar on a Spartan. Whenever they lose a round, they have to accept these circular scars. And we take entirely way too long in describing everybody's hot bodies and every which way they're ripping off their shirts and showing off how they've had 0 defeats, which is great, whatever. They don't even have to roll the dice. They all get the default of like 5 Cyclops opponents. Why are they even here? Doesn't matter. Again, remember I said earlier, I don't remember why Hermos and Agatha are here. We still don't know if they're half chthonics, if they're like special creatures or anything like that, but whatever, couldn't tell you. They don't matter. They roll the dice, whatever. Despite this whole song and dance about ripping their shirts open to expose their hot bods and rolling the dice, it really doesn't matter how many labors/opponents the other characters get. The only character really of particular note in this scene is Charon, who has 11 defeat scars, presumably from his first go about at the SGC at the tender age of 18. Finally, we get up to Alexis, our main character, and of course, because we have to humiliate her some more, she cannot open her own shirt. And when she does, she accidentally rips her entire toga athletic bodysuit open from tip to toe, basically, and exposes her lacy pink bra and her underwear in front of everybody. And of course, Zeus fucks with her dice roll and she ends up rolling 12 labors. 12 labors of Hercules. And you know, we all keep forgetting that her name is Hercules because it doesn't really matter. But of course, Charon is there cracking the skull open of the guard who just so happened to be next to her when she accidentally ripped her own shirt open. And everyone descends upon Zeus, all the chthonic houses, leaders, and of course Hades is like, what the heck? It's her first SGC, she can't do 12 labors, you gotta redo this dice roll. Of course, Zeus is like, no, there's nothing I can do, the dice have decided. Of course, Alexis knows that Zeus somehow fucked up her dice roll and is like, he's playing this game, I'm gonna play it, and she accepts the 12 labors. Finally, going on to chapter 30. This is Augustus' POV, and they're back in their little dungeon. Augustus does some brooding, of course. Alexis is about to reveal that she made some sort of dangerous decision. She did a bad thing, right? And we're like, oh, what's this bad thing? But Charon and Augustus don't hear what it is, because they're always on her side and they always forgive her. No matter what she did, they're always with her no matter what. It's at this point that Karen notices that Alexis has stopped stuttering, and I totally did not notice, but whatever. So then Alexis reveals that she realized she stopped stuttering when she was no longer afraid of Karen and Augustus. And they're like, when was that? And they were like, well, when you cut off your ear and gave it to me. And I'm like, okay, cool. I didn't notice. Whatever. They're all snuggled up in bed together. Again, don't ask me how they're all fitting on this bed. It's magic. It's all magic and it's all vibes. It doesn't really matter. It's only me thinking about, like, you know, the physical limitations of three people fitting on a bed, the same way that people thought about how Jack and Rose can fit on the door frame together. Couldn't tell you if they could all fit, but they can, or they can't. Doesn't matter. I'm going a little insane. Of course, they're all snuggled up in bed together, and Augustus notices that Alexis has some abuse scars. I think it was like cigarette burns or something. We know it's from her foster family, but they don't talk about it in this moment. Finally, chapter 31, SGC begins. It's the first day, and it's Artemis against 5 Cyclopses. Alexis is concerned for the safety of these Cyclopses, such as, like, do they know where they are? Did they consent to being here, etc.? But Augustus explains that they're just mindless monsters, and that's as far as Alexis is concerned for them goes. It doesn't come back. Couldn't tell you. Never came back. Doesn't really matter. It's here that Augustus and Karen explains the different ways you can lose your labors, such as passing out, falling into a coma, dying, don't know how they die, don't know what can kill them, whatever, it doesn't really matter. Or even if you win all your labors, if you're unable to walk out of the ring on your own 2 feet, then that also counts as an automatic loss. And we learn here that's how Karen wasn't able to fulfill all his labors. Even though he technically defeated all his opponents at the tender age of 18, he wasn't able to walk out of the arena. That's why Artemis disowned him, and that's why he has chronic pain in his right knee that we hear about every once in a while. Cool. Anyway, it doesn't really matter. Of course, Artemis defeats the Cyclopses, and it's time for... You think there wouldn't be? Oh, but there is. It's symposium time! Chapter 32, it's the after party, which they call the symposium. Honestly, these symposiums, they happen after every day of the SGC and they get skimmed over real quick. Not much really matters, I recall. I mean, if it matters, then I'll tell you. Like telling everybody that there's an after party every day when not everything of importance happens on every single day because there's 13 days, whatever. Look, in this first after party, Alexis gets drunk. She propositions an Olympian. The Olympian is like, huh? And then realizes that she's like a psychotic chthonic. She thinks about walking up to her grandmother Demeter, who's here because it's a big gathering of Olympians and chthonics, but she never actually goes up to her grandmother. And of course, she and her husband's horny dance for a while. There are reporters here, and of course they're hounding Alexis and Karen and Augustus for questions. For some reason, the first question they ask is, how come your dog looks like shit? Other questions that don't really matter. They do talk about Medusa eventually because she's relevant, but that doesn't really go anywhere. Alexis gets drunk, declares she wants both Karen and Augustus to have sex with her, but they say she's not ready yet. And before the end of the chapter, there's about like 2.5 pages of nonsense because they're playing around with her voice recording graphing calculator made out of titanium. Whatever. Chapter 33. Ares defeats his Cyclopses. It's SGC day 2. They go to the after party symposium. Lena is there, the siren from book 1. She says the Olympians are up to something, but we don't know what. Lena never clarifies what they're up to. Alexis here asks her for help in accessing the speakers. This was like such a small moment in the text that I totally forgot about it until it becomes relevant later. But Zeus notices them like talking to each other and is like, whoa, don't talk to the servants. Separate. So they do, and they don't really talk. They don't talk again, actually. It gets brought up again that the chthonics are going to get interrogated again after their own specific round at the end of their SGC round. Couldn't tell you why they aren't being interrogated now, why they weren't being interrogated earlier. I thought maybe it was because they wanted to take advantage of like exhaustion, take advantage of like lack of energy after a fight to try and interrogate them, but that never it gets brought up as a potential reason why the interrogations are happening now all of a sudden, but whatever. Because like how many months has it been since? Whatever, couldn't tell you, I don't really care. Anyway, chapter 34, Alexis's POV. This is the part where we start zipping through the days. Like it's not just one chapter, one day anymore. We're zipping through the days. Literally like SGC day 3 is like not even a full page, and then we start SGC day 4. Day 3, Hades defeats the Cyclopses, whatever. Day 4, Erebus, remember, is Karen's father, and I guess he gets to have a round. He also defeats his Cyclopses. Day 5, Aphrodite, you guessed it, defeats her Cyclopses. I don't really understand why we have to go through the whole song and dance of like all these leaders easily defeating their Cyclopses, because nothing changes, nothing exciting happens. They don't nearly lose because they're all the leaders. Like, we could have saved so much time if we just skipped all 6 of these first rounds. I thought it would have been cool if like they were all fighting each other, you know, dark tournament style, but whatever, we don't get that either. Everybody wins, woohoo, hooray, okay, great, cool. Cool. Yeah, I gotta get home and watch anime. So at the end of Aphrodite's round, in that symposium, one of Alexis's former school bullies named Titus, remember, I don't think I mentioned him by name in the first video, but he was one of the school bullies back in torture school. He tries to like amend things with her. He's like, hey, I acted like a real bully back in torture school. I hope we can make amends. It's important for our houses to maintain good relationships with each other. But Alexis isn't having it. I don't remember if she was drunk, but she isn't having it because I guess she doesn't like that it wasn't a genuine apology and that like the ulterior motive was for good house relations, but she isn't having it. And then of course Titus gets like really uppity, like, oh my god, you're being such a bitch, why can't you just accept my apology? Karen and Augustus show up and Titus leaves. I don't really know what the point of this scene was. I guess it's like to show that Alexis really doesn't care about what other people think, but I don't think she ever really did. I mean, is she being like, I don't know, extra sassy now? There was this scene in the way beginning of the book that I forgot to mention, that like way before, like chapter 1, just before Alexis goes off to first day of Titan training, her father is like, remember daughter, people don't fear the sane. And I guess the running theme is that Alexis goes insane and that people fear her. Whatever that theme was, that never really gets interrogated. So she goes insane, and then what? She doesn't really go insane. I mean, I'm going insane. Whatever. Next chapter, chapter 35. SGC day 6. So for the past 5 days, Alexis has been sitting, of course, with her husbands, Karen and Augustus, but now she's finally sitting with Drex and Charlie. Charlie actually briefly speaks verbally, but when Alexis does a double take and is like, whoa, did you just speak? And Charlie's like, no, I didn't speak. That scene reminded me of, if you remember back in the day, Raven, the Acid Bath Princess of the Darkness, those YouTube videos, they had this one video, I forgot his name, but he was like some sort of goth, I think he called himself like the Dark Clown or something like that. Ace, his name was Ace or something like that. He was like a non-verbal like goth clown or something like that. And they headbang to Evanescence and then he says something and then Raven's like, wait, did you just say something? And he's like, no.
I didn't know you could talk. Yeah, me either, actually.
It reminded me of that. Of course, Charlie doesn't speak again later. Doesn't come back. This doesn't come back. It's Agatha's turn. And remember, she's an Impusa, so she easily gobbles up all her first 4 opponents. But her last opponent is her own partner, Hermos. And the Chthonics are like, what? Like, you can't just have us fight each other. Like, they aren't having it. And of course, Hermos and Agatha initially refuse to fight each other. However, it's a stormy day out, so Zeus has his magic scepter that can permanently render anybody comatose. Because remember, even though it was established back in the first book that Olympians have like self-buffing powers, Zeus is the exception and he has his permanent comatose lightning strike powers. But it only works on a stormy day. So today is stormy and he wants Agatha and Hermos to fight each other, so he aims at them but misses on purpose, and it creates this like glass sculpture in the arena sand. And this actually happens, I think. I forgot what it's called. But when lightning strikes sand, it actually can create weird sculptures because, well, I could get into like the heat of the lightning, whatever. I won't get into that. But because they're so spooked, Agatha tells Hermos to basically defeat her on purpose, and she accepts 5 failure marks because I guess it's a win all your labors or get the amount of scars defeat. So we're going up to chapter 36, Symposium again. Alexis asks like I was like, you better not be doing 20 questions, because she starts asking them about their favorite colors. Karen does the thing where it's like, oh, my world was so black and gray until my favorite color is gold, the color of your hair when I met you. Cool. They get horny and go back to their single bed to cuddle. Finally, we go up to day 7. Hermos has his labors. Agatha's looking awful because Alexis realizes that, oh yeah, she probably was interrogated after her round, but she doesn't ask Agatha about her interrogation. She doesn't ask her even how she's feeling. Doesn't ask. We go up to SGC day 8. Patroclus beats his round, of course, but ooh, everyone's getting really anticipated for Achilles' round, which is tomorrow because he gets to take off his muzzle. SGC day 9. It's Achilles' turn. He comes out with Patroclus. because remember, he has his key to his muzzle. He's the only one. But unfortunately, Patroclus is limping, and Alexis realizes that his Achilles tendon has been cut, which is the back of his ankle. And Alexis figures it's presumably from his interrogation. Zeus gives the go-ahead to unlock the muzzle. Everyone's like, ooh, ah, like in anticipation. Patroclus unlocks the muzzle, but Achilles doesn't take it off right away. And I was like, damn, I was hoping I was hoping they'd kiss for real, because like every time they're together, they're like trying to kiss, but they can't. And I'm like, oh my God, but they can't. They still don't kiss even when the muzzle comes off. So when Achilles goes out to the arena out of, I guess, solidarity for his lover, he cuts his own Achilles tendon. And then I'm like, wait a second, how can it still be called an Achilles tendon if Achilles never got his ankle shot at in the Trojan War to expose his weak point from the river Styx blessing? What, some human scientists were like, wow, we discovered this new muscle in your ankle. We're gonna name it after this random 22-year-old. Yeah, I think Achilles is supposed to be like 22 in this world or something. So he finally does take off the muzzle, and Alexis notices that he has an X-shaped scar over his lips and figures like, oh my God, like the Olympians must have tried to sew his mouth shut. Like, wow, you took the hard route. First try, let's sew your mouth shut. I'm not, whatever. I don't know. I guess it's supposed to look cool. Couldn't tell you. Remember, Achilles was supposed to have these like crazy voice torture powers. We're gonna see them, right? In these rounds? Maybe? So his first 4 opponents are these wolves. He easily defeats the wolves. And then finally, his last 4 opponents are these giant shape-shifting minotaurs. And okay, I can go into a whole thing about because these are capital M minotaurs, and like the capital M minotaur was supposed to be the one minotaur from the labyrinth, defeated by Theseus and imprisoned by the king of Minos, and blah, 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 blah. These are 4 capital M minotaurs. If these were, okay, just really nitpicky, if these were 4 lowercase m minotaurs, that would have been fine, because these are not proper noun minotaurs. Whatever. So there are 4 giant minotaurs. Everyone's like, yo, whoa, minotaurs, wow. And instead of the voice torture powers we've been told he has this whole time, Achilles breathes fire on them. Okay, well, that wasn't what I expected. And then it's here, Alexis realizes like, whoa, fire powers. Wait a second. Remember all of those unlit cigarettes I saw all of a sudden being lit when he was smoking them in between like the gaps in his muzzle? That must be his fire powers. And I'm like, okay, I don't care about his cigarettes. Like, he's not gonna die. He's not doing like slow suicide with cigarettes. Like, okay, I don't care about his magically lit cigarettes. I thought it was a mistake in continuity this whole time. I didn't know it was supposed to be important. Whatever. But Alexis specifically calls this Greek fire, and I have to be nitpicky here because Greek fire isn't the fire itself. Greek fire is the incendiary weapon that was used, I think, most notably in the 14th century during the time of the Byzantines when they were fighting naval battles. And it was with this secret weapon that they were able to light water on fire, or more specifically, it allowed fire to stay lit even when in contact with water. We don't know the exact composition of Greek fire because it was like a state secret. Of course, there have been experiments like using ingredients that would have been available at the time. I think some experiments in 2002 got temperatures as high as 1,000 degrees Celsius, because here Alexis describes the fire being so hot that it turns the arena sand to glass, and it's literally setting fire to the rain. Cue Adele. But to be nitpicky here, fire can't turn sand to glass unless it's 1,700 degrees Celsius. If you want Greek fire powers, I think it would be cool if like Achilles like spit goo and then set it on fire, but that wouldn't be very sexy. Whatever. So his fire breath is so destructive that like everybody is fleeing the arena, except for, of course, the chthonic section is relatively unharmed. Except I'm over here thinking about like smoke inhalation, but whatever. I'm the only one thinking that. And of course, maybe I could go into a whole tangent about like the impurities in the sand, turning it into glass, because glass is not just made up of sand, it's made up of silica sand, blah, blah, blah. But whatever. I don't really care about like whether or not Greek fire is correct here. I'm more like generally disappointed that like, hey, we've been told all throughout the first book, some part of this book, that Achilles has voice torture powers this whole time. And I was like, oh cool, what kind of voice torture powers? Are they like Bene Gesserit voice torture powers, or is it like Inumaki from Jujutsu Kaisen voice torture powers? How destructive are they? What does he do? Instead, it's just like, he breathes fire, everyone's dead or fleeing, and we're fine, we're not dying from smoke inhalation or whatever. It's yeah. whatever, chapter 38. It's still day 9. It's the after party now. And Alexis has been kind of trying on and off. I don't remember, but she's been trying on and off to get her white magic healing powers to work, but it's just not working. And Nyx comedically tries to like choke her to trigger a reaction, to trigger anything. And a nearby Olympian, of course, freaks out, calls her a psychotic chthonic. Karen and Augustus come up and they're like, whoa, what's going on? Is your snake choking you? And then Alexis is like, you don't get it. We're women. We do these womanly things and men just don't get what women do. Whatever. They do some more horny dance and of course, they're so horny they can't get back to their dungeon cell fast enough and they hop in the shower. Chapter 39. I'm gonna be brief because this is a sex scene. They still don't go all the way. In the shower, Alexis wants to know how to give pleasure, so they teach her how using her mouth, if you know what I'm saying. It's fine. It's a fine scene. Like usually the sex scenes here are like, okay, not terrible, not necessarily wow inducing, but I do wish it was more Alexis focused, which is like, it is Alexis focused in a way, but not in the way that I think could have made this more interesting, because like they're like constantly giving her praise, constantly giving her compliments, but they've been giving her compliments and praise this whole book. It doesn't really feel much different than when they're not in sexy times versus now when they are. When I'm saying like more Alexis focused, I mean like, because for pretty much almost all of the first book and for some of this book as well, like Alexis has been struggling with being like touch averse, struggling with intimacy, struggling with sexual imagery. Remember like back in when she was like still going to high school, she did look at the pictures on the internet about like the sexy chthonic guys, and like she was kind of interested in like, you know, like looking at the symposium when there was like the orgy or whatever. And she like has been like both encouraged and discouraged by Nyx and other people to go have fun and go meet a man, blah blah blah. When I say more Alexis focus, like generally like back in the beginning it's like, oh, this is only a physical relationship. Sorry, this Laurel is always itching me. Because remember in the beginning, like, oh, she says to Karen, oh, this is just a physical relationship. So when I think more Alexis focused, I'm like, I would have liked these scenes maybe up to a point to be about like her selfishly like using Karen and Augustus for her own pleasure, for her own experience, to gain more experience from them. Because she's again calling herself touch averse, calling herself a prude, calling herself asexual, which is a whole other problem. There is like the spectrum of asexuality that she could have explored, you know, like weighing her comfortableness and her feelings about like the emotional spectrum versus the physical spectrum. Like again, this could have been an interesting relationship development where like Alexis wants this to be purely physical, but Karen and Augustus for whatever reason want this to be more emotional and physical, but Alexis doesn't want to give or isn't able to like help them with their emotional needs, as they probably aren't ready to be emotional themselves. So when I say more Alexis focused, I mean like that, but really it's just like Alexis learns how to use her mouth and Karen and Augustus give her constant praise. And when she's done, she realizes that Karen and Augustus have matching tattoos of her name on their thighs. Whatever, it doesn't matter. When they're done, Augustus tucks them all into bed and they snuggle. End of chapter. Chapter 40, really short, barely 2 pages of Charon's POV mooning over Alexis. I don't know if you can see. That's literally the whole chapter. So chapter 41, give it up for SGC day 10. I guess Drex gets around, because I guess even though he's technically half Olympian, since he's joined the Chthonics, I guess he has to participate. He only gets 2 monsters to fight, but somehow, even after all this time with the Chthonics, he's still so, what's the word for it? Pathetic. I feel so bad because he's my only Asian character here. Remember, his last name is Chen. I'm the only one who remembers. So he's so pathetic, despite having spent all this time with the Chthonics. Even though he only has 2 monsters to fight, he doesn't actually engage with them. He just runs around the arena for so long that the monsters get tired. Because remember, his power is super endurance. So Drex gets 2 scars of defeat. But I guess somehow the Chthonics still think he's cool, because I think he shoots Zeus a dirty look or something, and they're like, well, there's still time for this kid to whip him into shape into being a Chthonic. Of course, Karen and Augustus stew a little bit in jealousy because Drex and Alexis still have a good friendship. So we go on to SGC day 11. It's here we get an interesting bit from Augustus about how like lately he hasn't felt like he's been a good elder heir. Remember also, he's the elder half brother to both Patroclus and Achilles, and he feels a little bit bad that like he's not really been there for them. Despite their betrayal, it's like maybe if I'd been there for them, you know what I mean? Because he's the eldest, he's like, man, like Hermos and Agatha are injured and we're all being interrogated, and I haven't really felt like I've been a good elder brother. I haven't really felt like a good leader. This is a really interesting route to go down, except, you guessed it, it doesn't really come back again. No interesting moment later about how like he rallies everyone together and is like, hey, I'm sorry, I've been so wrapped up in my relationship that I feel like I haven't been a good leader to you all, but I promise to be balancing both my personal life and my obligations to you all. No, nothing like that. He's like, well, I feel a little bit bad that I haven't really been a good brother. And then we don't hear from that again. Anyway, it's Charon's round. He gets to fight 3 monsters and he has a good fight until he takes an acid attack to the side because he's fighting like dragons or whatever, but he makes it back to the arena on 2 feet. Unfortunately, remember, they had a 3-way marriage bond in which back then, in the beginning of this book, Charon and Augustus could feel Alexis's pain, but Alexis couldn't feel theirs. Well, unfortunately, now that they're all getting along, Alexis can now feel Charon's pain. So when he has the acid attack, it's not just Augustus, it's also Alexis feeling the pain. And remember, they're in the chthonic section of the arena, so Hades notices this and is like, whoa, what's going on? Why is my daughter in pain? What's going on? Augustus explains, just also being in pain, that they have a shared pain bond. And I realized here that, like, wait a second, is like this shared pain bond like normal for Spartan marriage oaths? Couldn't tell you, they never explain it. Anyway, the chapter ends, it's chapter 42, Charon's POV. So Charon makes it out of the arena on 2 feet, but he pretty much collapses right after because of the acid pain. Hades is there. He's like ready to pick up his son-in-law or whatever, but Zeus yanks him right out of his hands to teleport them to the interrogation room. Zeus is like, hey, I have medical treatment for you as long as you answer my questions. There's about 1.5 pages of back and forth before finally Patroclus is here, and I'm like, oh boy. Because remember Patroclus's lie detection powers, and I'm like, geez, why haven't they been using him this whole time? To wrap things up real fast, whatever, couldn't tell you. So Patroclus, of course, uses his powers to confirm that Charon doesn't know anything about Medusa, didn't release Medusa, nothing. Would have made this book a hell of a lot shorter if he just used his lie detection powers from the outstart. Because remember, Achilles is Patroclus's weak spot, and, well, you'll learn later that, like, that's what the Olympians have been exploiting all this time to make Patroclus work for them in interrogations, yada, yada, yada. So Charon is released, and again, they have this really nice moment because Patroclus helps him out of the interrogation room, and they have this heart-to-heart about how, like, Patroclus really does care about Alexis, and he's sorry for what happened back in Rome, and Charon is like, I miss you too, and I want to forgive you, but this isn't really the right time. And I'm like, oh my god, this is like sincere and interesting, and I want to explore this route further, and this doesn't totally revolve around Alexis for once, kind of, because we don't really hear a lot about the relationships between the 4 men themselves, like ever since the end of the first book, from before Alexis's arrival, and less so in the second book, rather back in the first book. In the first book, they had moments together, and it was obvious that they were hanging out outside of Alexis's point of view. But here in the second book, we have like next to nothing about their own interpersonal relationships, how they're all brothers, how they're all supposed to be running this weapons manufacturing company together. Couldn't tell you how that weapons company is doing. It's never been mentioned in this book and won't ever be mentioned in this book. Imagine being that poor guy working at the weapons manufacturing company and being like, yeah, we're not getting anything done because our 4 bosses are fighting over this one girl. Anyway, it was a sweet moment. Last about, 1 page. Doesn't come back later, you guessed it. So Charon is helped back to his shared dungeon cell, but he immediately flies into a panic attack when he realizes that Alexis has been feeling his pain because of their leveled up marriage bond. But once he calms down, Alexis helps him calm down, then Augustus helps him calm down. They start talking about Mozart for a while and then goes to bed. Yeah, whatever. The chapter's still going. We're up to day 12. It's Augustus's turn. Can you guess? Yeah, he easily defeats all his labors, of course, really easily, because it's here that he shows the full extent of his own mind powers. Because I guess he has voice torture too, because he just tells his monsters to go kill themselves when they all blow up or whatever. Charon is like, oh my god, he showed off the full extent of his powers, and now the Olympians are going to muzzle him too like they did with Achilles. But he did this all for you, Alexis, because he doesn't want you to be in pain anymore. Wow. Whatever. Chapter finally ends because like they don't actually get around to muzzling him. There isn't even a whiff of discussion from the Olympians about muzzling him too. Whatever. At least that was quick. Chapter 43. Finally, we're up to day 13. It's Alexis's turn. Chapter 43. So wakes up, Karen and Augustus are nowhere to be found. Fluffy Jr. is the only animals there, and also Nyx is there too. Remember, I don't think I've been mentioning it, but like Fluffy Jr. hasn't been doing so hot this whole time. So she's picked up by her guards, told to pick a weapon. Amazingly, in all her time, like a year in Sparta, she hasn't specialized in any weapon or gotten any more proficient in any fighting. She asked Nyx, remember Nyx is here, like, hey, which weapon is the easiest? And Nyx says, oh, take the spear. Oh yeah, I think it was here. Okay, I'm not gonna go on a tangent, maybe a little bit, because she describes it as a long titanium pole with an arrow-like end off the wall. I'm gonna get into a tiny tangent because I looked up on Reddit that making weapons out of titanium isn't actually the best because despite its strength, it can actually be quite brittle. That's why steel has always been the best. But if the pole is made out of titanium, I don't know if they said the shaft was made out of titanium, whatever. Anyway, titanium weapons aren't the best. Fun fact. Unfortunately, it's stormy out, so Alexis is a little freaked out that she might be permanently comatose zapped by Zeus's lightning powers. It's supposed to be only 4 monsters per round, so presumably she'd be fighting 4 opponents 3 rounds. But Alexis's first round is 8 Nemean lions. Don't know where Nemea is, don't know where the lion... Like, it's supposed to be capital N Nemean lion because, like, the Nemean lion is special, but, like, it's not even special it's... The Nemean lion is not special anymore. I guess it's supposed to be because the Nemean lion was the first of real Hercules 12 labors. I could go on a whole thing about how like these 12 labors are like so flat to compared to Hercules' 12 labors, because I think if I recall correctly, his 12 labors are like labors of penance because he was being punished for accidentally killing his own wife and child because of madness induced by Hera. Whatever, Alexis gets to fight 8 lions, single-handedly destroying the entire lion population. Couldn't tell ya. Couldn't tell ya. So Invisible Nyx and Fluffy Jr. help Alexis fight these 8 lions. Alexis suddenly has like a bout of amnesia about her own powers, but I think with her 2 animal companions, a lot of lions are easily disposed of. With 2 lions left, Fluffy Jr. is taking 1 lion on, but Nyx is injured. Alexis is also pretty much drained of energy at this point, having fought 6 lions. 1 lion is about to attack Alexis, but guess what? She has a secret 3rd power. Hooray! Cool. This was not the secret Mousecatool that would help us later. So with her secret 3rd power, she's able to conjure a rod-like weapon from her blood. Very Dead Man Wonderland, if you ask me. I thought it was supposed to be like a hoplite Dory spear because, wow, okay, she's wearing hoplite armor. Remember, back in the first video, I talked about how I had to do research on Greek hoplite armor because I thought this was Roman armor on the cover, but it was presumably Greek hoplite armor, so I'm like, oh cool, maybe she has a Greek hoplite blood spear. We'll see later, it's not quite that. But she's able to defeat the last lion. Fluffy Jr.'s injured, Nyx is injured, everyone's in an uproar. She has her spear, she points it at Zeus and's like, I know what you did. Ooh, whatever, she's still in her SGC round, so her next opponents are, wow, the 2 flying titans she fought back in Rome. You shouldn't have. There's like this tagging system that was briefly mentioned back when she first fought these titans that like, oh, you have to tag the titans you fight, and then it's brought up again here, like, oh wow, they must have had us tag them for this moment, and I'm like, but does it matter? Like, we didn't see any other titans being brought out. If she didn't tag them, I'm pretty sure they would have been, whatever, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Of course, titans are like, oh my god, titans. And of course, Hades is like, whoa, 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 But Zeus is like, yeah, she has to fight to prove her honor, blah, 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 blah. What happened to all the protect the women stuff from the first book? Couldn't tell you where that went. Remember, Zeus has his permanent lightning coma powers activated, so Alexis braces herself for round 2. So chapter 44 now, we're still on Alexis's round. Alexis is still injured, Nyx is still injured, Fluffy Jr. is dealing with his knot cancer. She manages to affect the Titans with her blood torture powers, but it's still not enough to kill them, and Alexis is ready to go down fighting until Fluffy Jr. goes through his final evolution. And I'll read it to you on page 426. Fluffy Jr. rose to his feet with a loud flapping noise. He towered above me, his head taller than mine. He opened his mouth, and the sound that rumbled out was straight from my memories. It was the terrifying noise from the back of the menagerie. Totally do not remember what she's talking about. Flaps echoed, appendages moved, bright blue feathers shimmered. Fluffy Jr. bellowed louder, majestic wings protruded from his back. Mother of God! Goosebumps exploded across my body. Augustus had been wrong. Fluffy Jr. was one of the rare creatures who molted, and he'd just grown wings. They were stunning shades of sparkly blue straight from lore. I had in fact bonded with a horse, and it all made sense. He really wasn't the brightest. Tell that to my horse daughters, Alexis. Tell that to my Uma Musume children. Yeah, so she rides Fluffy Jr. like the winged dog horse that he is. Yeah. I'm just thinking about the Disney Hercules movie, if you know what I'm saying. So Fluffy Jr. rips off a Titan's head. Everyone's wow, and her father is wow, and Nyx still isn't doing so great. So Alexis, wow, heals her with her magic healing powers. With her snake and her dog Pegasus hybrid back on their feet, Alexis raises her staff like Luke Skywalker in A New Hope, and with the wings of Fluffy Jr. and with Nyx the snake coiling herself around the staff, everyone shouts, Radius Asclepi! And Alexis is like, yes, I have the rod of Asclepius in my hand, wow. And I'm like, what? Okay, so first up, I don't have to tell you, my fellow Greek mythology nerds, I don't even know how to pronounce this. The caduceus, that the symbol of the rod and the snake and the two wings is the caduceus. I think I'm hopefully pronouncing that correctly, which is the symbol of Hermes, who is the god of travel and messages and merchants. Even Percy Jackson got this right. The rod of Asclepius is the symbol of one staff, one snake, and that is the symbol of the god of healing, Asclepius, who I believe was the son of Apollo, the god of medicine and music and the sun. This literally took one Google search. And look, there is a case for, like, in the US, the medical organizations and medical corps here do use both the caduceus and the rod of Asclepius interchangeably for both of their medical organizations, but everybody typically agrees that the one snake and no wings is the rod of Asclepius, and the wings and two snakes is the caduceus, which is for Hermes. Wikipedia will tell you that, hey, look, there's been a couple of mistakes because they look kind of similar, staffs and snakes and all that. Even there, no matter what kind of snake staff that Alexis has, I can't draw a connection between the rod of Asclepius, which is not a weapon, like Excalibur or something like that. There is no connection between Asclepius and Chthonics, or like with Alexis being the daughter of Hades and Persephone. There's not even a connection I can draw for her and Hermes, because I don't know if they acknowledge like the Olympians are all siblings. I think they vaguely acknowledge it, but I don't think it's like clear 100% that like all these Olympians are siblings the same way that the real Olympians are. And look, yeah, Alexis's healing powers, sure, I can understand that vaguely from like Persephone being like the goddess of spring or whatever, but like it would have made more sense being a Chthonic daughter that like, I don't know, that maybe Alexis would have like nature-related powers, earth-related powers. Her grandmother Demeter is the goddess of agriculture, something related to that. Healing, sure, maybe, whatever, not very exciting, not very Demeter and Persephone-like, but I cannot even draw like a single connection between Asclepius or Hermes or these snake staffs or any of her other connections. Because if she just had this cool blood spear weapon, then like you could say like, oh yeah, just like the way it was described initially, I thought it was some sort of spear with a counterweight balance on it, because she talks about like flipping the rod over because there's a sharp end and a blunt end, or like a counterweight end. I'm like, okay, that would have been cool, but we have to like bring up this like completely unrelated symbolism of like the wings and the snake, and it's only one snake, it's not even two snakes. Whatever, I can't get too nitpicky about like one snake versus two snakes, but I am gonna get a little nitpicky because even Percy Jackson got this right. She's not even good with spears. She's not good at any weapons, so it's whatever. Chapter 45. I don't remember. I guess the Titans have been technically defeated when she summoned like the rod of Asclepius, whatever. Finally, she's up to her last two opponents. Because remember, it's not that her 12 labors are 12 meaningful tasks about like self-redemption or whatever. It's just her opponents. So she defeated 10 opponents already. Now it's up to the last two. And of course, maybe you've guessed it by now, is that her last two opponents are her husbands, Karen and Augustus. Uh-oh, spaghetti-o. It's a whole emotional thing about about like, of course, Alexis doesn't want to fight them. Alexis doesn't want them to get more scars for their failure. But of course, like, oh my God, we do literally anything for you, blah, blah, blah. We don't want to fight you because we love you, blah, 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 blah. For some reason, it's here specifically that Augustus notices that something is wrong with her left eye, because at some point her injuries got so bad that her right eye swelled up. So I guess like Alexis can't quite see what's going on, but she knows that she doesn't want to fight her husbands, and Augustus notices that something is wrong, and she confesses that she's blind in her left eye. Whatever, doesn't really matter. So it turns out, I guess, that Karen and Augustus have a plan of their own, and Augustus knocks Charon out with his mind powers, and while pushing his own thoughts into Alexis about like, you have to stab me because we have to let you win, blah blah blah, he corners her and manages to like get himself stabbed on her rod staff spear on the sharp end. So when he falls over from her blood torture powers, she tries to heal him, of course, but he's still conscious enough to stop her and let himself be defeated. As soon as he's out, Zeus wastes no time, jumps right down into the arena, brands Augustus and Charon for their failures. I don't care to remember how many labors Karen and Augustus had completed before this time, because like, did they not notice that they only defeated -1 of their labors? So like Alexis counted as their labor. I don't know if they technically completed their labors or not. I don't really care to go back and find out. But anyway, whether or not they completed their labors is irrelevant. Zeus brands them for their failure to defeat Alexis. And Alexis, of course, tries to confront Zeus about this, but she's too weak, she's too injured. Zeus tells her, hey girl, you gotta walk out of the arena if you want your labors, if you want this to be done, because you're not gonna win unless you get out on your own 2 feet. So Alexis takes their sacrifice and walks out of the arena on her own 2 feet. And of course, chapter 46, you guessed it, she wakes up from being passed out right in the interrogation room. Zeus questions what Alexis knows about Medusa, but Alexis does a Uno reverse card and is like, what about you? And Zeus is like, what about me? So seemingly out of nowhere, Alexis accuses Zeus of conspiring with Vico to have her assassinated when she was a baby, accuses Zeus of having set up the Titan attack and framing Medusa for everything. I'll read it to you because it's so bizarre. I'm reading this and I'm like, where was this investigation that you got all this information? On page 444. 444? Oh no, triple death. Starting here. At the Crucible graduation ceremony, I cleared my dry throat, projecting my voice, and recited the facts that we both knew. Vico said that there was a Titan attack at the House of Zeus during the Federation meeting, and that he grabbed a baby and leapt away. There was blood everywhere and he passed out. When he woke up, the baby was gone. Zeus leaned closer. And I inhaled deeply. Everything from this point on was my own speculation. He lied. Remember when Patroclus, I guess Patroclus must have been in on this whole time, but I don't think this was brought up. Anyway, whatever. Continue. Zeus laughed, relief on his face. Is that what this is all about, M-? Is that the secret you know? He laughed louder, skulls rattling as his voice rang, because this is the dungeons are technically the catacombs, so imagine like the Paris catacombs, whatever. There was an attack because you planned it, I shouted, my suspicions gasping for air. Zeus clutched his stomach as he laughed harder. You sent the Titans to attack the Federation meeting, not Medusa, ... You framed her. She didn't do anything. You planned it. Also, Vico could kill me. I struggled against my chains, trying to free my arm so I could show him the scar on my chest. It all made sense. Vico took me and the echidna he illegally bonded with, he enslaved, to Montana. I yelled, fury mounting, because it was so obvious in retrospect. But even as a baby, I must have fought. He cut me and my blood got into his veins. I incapacitated him before he could finish the job. Nyx's cool scales slithered around my neck. Kid, I didn't know, ... You figured it out. She hissed in wonderment. My oath, I can't hurt him. I know, I whispered to Nyx. I'd had my suspicions as soon as Vico told his story. Zeus looked amused, his posture relaxed. He thought it was all genuinely funny. Vico leapt away to get medical help. My dry throat burned as I continued. He technically wasn't lying when he said he woke up and I was gone. I wasn't there because he'd already left. He left me, a baby, alone to die. Zeus's smile widened. Both the echidna and I were left in Montana. He didn't react. I gritted my teeth. Tell me I'm wrong. I fucking dare you. I goaded him. You spineless, weak, pathetic, powerless coward. His gray eyes hardened. You're right. Zeus made a mocking face down at me. But is that it? Is that your big secret? Is that all you knew? All this time I've been worried and that was all. He resumed laughing. Yeah. Somehow, based on all of her own speculation, Alexis manages to nail down the exact story of what happened to her attempted assassination. I still don't know why Vico has Nyx, or why he enslaved Nyx, or why Nyx was under some sort of oath to like not harm anybody or not reveal anything that was happening to her. Like, I guess Nyx is also bound by Spartan oaths. I don't know what made Nyx want to bind to this Spartan oath. I don't know what Nyx wants to have protected. Don't know how baby Alexis survived in the winters of Montana or whatever. Don't know how baby Alexis could have fought Vico in order for her to activate her blood torture powers, because remember, her blood needs to interact with his blood somehow. I don't know how Vico could have been injured enough to get her blood on him in order to activate the blood torture powers. And I don't even remember if they had some sort of rule or general rule about like Spartan powers manifesting before 19 years old. I guess, I'm not sure. I just cannot conceive of a scenario in which, we don't know how old baby Alexis is, less than a year old, how like baby less than a year old Alexis has managed to fight a grown man who had a knife in order for her to draw blood so she can get her blood mixed with his. Also, she's a baby. I don't know like how she would conceive of the steps necessary to, or unless it was just like a weird, complete, like Rube Goldberg machine accident in which her blood got into his and she got lucky. Literally, all this would have been great if we had Vico getting interrogated, or Nyx somehow managed to break or circumvent her oath somehow. Literally, any other player in this scenario, is Patroclus actually in on it? And, or like, do we have to go back to like the graduation scene in which Vico was questioned, in which Vico managed to get away with saying just enough that he was able to trick Patroclus's lie detection powers? Or is Patroclus in on it and said he wasn't lying even though he really was? I thought Nyx's previous master was Medusa this whole time. That would have been interesting, if not at least a little bit more sense, but whatever. Zeus confirms all this anyway. We don't know why. Like, he just confirms, yeah, I tried to have you killed. He doesn't say why he tried to have her killed. Doesn't say, oh, there's a prophecy in which like the daughter of Hades and Persephone was gonna overthrow me or anything like that. Or I just fucking hated your gut. Like, you looked at me wrong as a baby and I wanted to have you killed. We don't know why. He's laughing at her, and yet like, if this information got out, this could like probably start the war again. I don't know if that's what he wants. Definitely that's not what everybody else wants. Everybody just wants to stew in like tension this whole time. But whatever. Patroclus is brought in, questions Alexis about Medusa. He says she's telling the truth when she doesn't know anything, but we know from Alexis's thoughts that there's still something going on. Despite Patroclus declaring her innocent, Zeus, I don't know what he thought would happen. He leaves her in the interrogation room with a bunch of guards to beat the shit out of her. Again, remember, like I just said, like the Chthonics kind of want any excuse to start the war, even though like nobody wants it. Like, they just want to wage war because they're just so devoted to their own people. And yet having like Alexis being like brutally beat up, attempted assassination when she was a baby, if this information was about to get out, yeah, everybody would totally wage war. And then what? Oh, and like, even if Zeus wanted the war too, he just says like, yeah, I wanted to assassinate you because I wanted an excuse to start the war, or any other reason for that, like to start the war. I don't know why. I don't know why anyone would want to start the war on purpose, because Helen said a long time ago, I don't remember if I mentioned it, but Helen said a long time ago that like, they didn't stop the Great War because one side was winning. They just stopped because they knew they were all gonna kill each other and there would be no more Spartans left. So the whole reason why they don't start the war and maintain this like tenuously peaceful coexistence, except not really, is mutually assured destruction. So it's the same concept when it comes to nuclear weapons that we have here. We have them, so don't use them, or else we're all going to die. Again, I don't know the difference between like permanently comatose or dead. If anything were to happen to Alexis, everybody would wage war. If not her husbands alone, would wage war for her. Zeus hasn't got a good reason, hasn't got a good plan. Anyway, of course, Nyx is still here, remember, so she helps Alexis escape and eats or poisons all the 12 or dozen guards. And Alexis teleports to the symposium after party because they're still having parties. For some reason, it's not said why. Karen and Augustus are bound to chairs, and of course, as soon as they see Alexis, they break out of the chairs. We don't know why they're chained to the chairs. Of course, they see Alexis all bloodied and bruised up, and they're like, oh my god, who did this to you? But Alexis is like, I took care of them, wink. They're both like, oh my god, I could ravage you on this dance floor right now because that was so hot. But of course, Nyx is like, bitch, I took care of him. Anyway, no one seems to notice Alexis teleporting in, doesn't seem to notice Karen and Augustus busting out of their chairs, doesn't seem to notice when she slinks back to the back of the ballroom or whatever and like rummages through the AV equipment and finds that Lena left her a helpful post-it note about like which USB port to use. Alexis Also, during this whole time, she's had her titanium voice recording graphing calculator in her pocket this whole time. She uses the USB port to plug in her graphing calculator to hijack the speakers and reveal to everyone that she secretly recorded the interrogation between her and Zeus. Reveals to everyone that Zeus basically confessed to Alexis's attempted assassination when she was a baby. The whole party explodes into chaos, of course, and I was actually really surprised to find that even all of the Olympians were against Zeus. Like, how could you? How dare you almost start the Great War again? And even Fate, remember the violet-eyed, white-haired lady who's here sometimes, even she's like, the prophecy's been fulfilled. Zeus, you suck. Get out of here. Everyone get him. Yeah, so Zeus is surprisingly outnumbered. I don't know, I guess I thought there would be more of a, like, instead of an immediate outrage and how dare you from the Olympians, some Olympians would be like, whoa, 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 calm down everybody, like, we can't do this to our own people, that kind of thing. But no, all the Olympians are against him, all the Chthonics are against him, Lady Feint is against him, Zeus teleports away. But as soon as that happens, it's not a celebration yet. Alexis goes to Charon and Augustus and tells them she has to get back to the Lake Como villa because Patroclus knows about Ceres. Chapter 47, Alexis finds Patroclus and Ceres are having a back and forth. Achilles is here too. Alexis tries to come to Ceres' defense, but Patroclus snatches her wig and reveals, dun dun dun, that Ceres is actually Medusa in disguise. And for some reason, she's only described with 3 snakes in her black hair. I don't know, that imagery doesn't really sit well with me because even Percy Jackson. So Patroclus calls Alexis a traitor for freeing Medusa because he doesn't really care that she was framed and is actually an innocent woman. He's just snake racist because of his tragic backstory. Even Achilles is against Alexis because what Alexis did put them all at risk, interrogations and whatever, yada yada, but they can't die.
But did you die?
So I don't know what the risk is. I guess permanent coma isn't fun, but still, you can get out of a coma. Of course, Augustus and Charon are unquestionably on Alexis's side, and they're like, well, how did this all happen? And Alexis is like, well, I'll tell you, all the way back in chapter 3, which is explained in chapter 48. So all the way back when Alexis teleported away after that training thingamabob, she ended up in that mysterious underground hallway. Well, turns out that was the capital U underworld, the Spartan prison. And we know this because Nyx know this. So Nyx says, kid, this is the underworld Spartan prison, which leads me to think that Nyx was here before, or the author just needed someone to verbally confirm out loud that yes, we are indeed in the underworld prison. Whatever. They hear a woman screaming and they follow the sound. And on a medical table, there's a woman in a hospital gown. A box is strapped on her head and there's a mask over her face and she's screaming. And the machine over her reads, age stasis 21 years old. Remember that like Augustus and Charon are like in their mid to late 20s and Alexis is 20. Patroclus and Achilles are like 21, 22 years old. I think it's because they can't have Medusa be older than them. You'll see why later. But the age stasis thing, the reason why they have an age stasis thing for Medusa, they explain, there's actually a reason for this. They explain is that they didn't want Medusa to mature or else her powers would get better, whatever. Permanent comas don't mean shit because then you can put the comatose person in age stasis until you can find a cure for them. Death would have been more dramatic. I don't know. So there's 2 doctors like laughing at her pain or whatever. And one of them asks like, is she in pain? I thought she wasn't supposed to feel anything. And the other one is like, whatever, the CTE has already begun. It's not explained what the CTE is in this context, because I thought, CTE, you mean like that brain trauma disease that football people get? And I tried to look this up, like maybe CTE meant something else. The only relevant CTEs I could find were the chronic traumatic encephalopathy, which is the football disease. There's a whole Will Smith movie about it. I watched it on an airplane once, and now I'm scared of football forever. Or there's this other medical thing called a computed tomography enterography, which is medical imaging of the small bowel. So either Medusa has had repeated head injuries that has now caused her brain to degenerate, which, considering how she will act for the rest of this book, is probably likely, or they're scanning her small bowel. But I'm gonna go with the former. So anyway, Alexis can't stand to see a woman being tortured, so she and Nyx kill the guards, the doctors. And this is just like a small aside, but like whenever Alexis thinks about this moment or describes this moment, she uses the words like violating and assaulting, which is really intense. Well, as far as we know, we don't exactly know what has happened to Medusa in prison, but all we've seen is like these doctors acting like jerks towards Medusa and treating her inhumanely. Assaulting and violating is like really big words. I don't know what we're trying to get at here. It's like, do we want like a tortured woman Medusa who's like been wronged at the hands of men, and we want that, but we don't actually want to like go the full 10 yards to actually show that happening? I don't really get it, but just like really awkward word choices here all around. So Alexis frees Medusa from her constraints and realizes when she removes the box off her head, obviously it was hiding her snakes, and Alexis realizes that this is Medusa. And despite being told that like Medusa's like this awful psychopathic criminal, Alexis has a gut feeling about her and takes Medusa with her out of the room. Navigating this prison is so easy because Nyx, presumably may or may not have been here before, directs Alexis on where to go, and there's no other guards anywhere. And somehow it's Hades who finds Alexis and Medusa. He's not immediately reactive to seeing Medusa with Alexis. He just says that somehow her imprisonment is outside of his jurisdiction. So he's the god of the underworld, but he's Asterix, not the god of all of it. Hades is on Alexis's side, of course. Doesn't question why he decides to free her. Just says some vague thing about like chthonics love with their whole heart and devote with their whole ass. Some vague speech about that. And they drop Medusa off at his house while Alexis promises that she'll come up with a plan because Olympians will come to question them as soon as they find out that Medusa's gone. And you'd think they would have security cameras or like machines detecting who teleports in and out of the underworld. Some sort of extra layer of security for their most infamous prisoner. None of that comes up. It's very easy, barely an inconvenience.
Actually, it's gonna be super easy. Barely an inconvenience. Oh, really?
Like, I would have accepted like one-off line from Hades saying like, don't worry, daughter, I'll hack the system so that they'll never know that you came and left, like that kind of thing. None of that. Yeah, so whatever. Just whatever, this book doesn't care. So we fast forward past chapter 4 because it wasn't Alexis's POV to chapter 5 when Alexis discovers the real Ceres in the dungeon. She uses her blood torture powers when she questions Ceres on whether or not she helped Theros, and for some reason Ceres fesses up now, after presumably being tortured by the other people, that she was glad to help Theros kill the other children for some reason. I couldn't tell you why, because Alexis kills her before any more can come out of that. She says, yes, I did, and then Alexis kills her. Couldn't tell you why this didn't happen before. Helen comes in, because I guess the noise or whatever, and she's on Alexis's side, like, don't worry, I'll help you hide the body. And Alexis presumably tells Helen that, like, hey, great opportunity, I have something else I need to do. And with the help of Helen's wig and makeup skills, Alexis and Helen disguise Medusa as Ceres and take Ceres's place in the dungeon, so that the onus won't be on Hades for hiding Medusa in his house, and Alexis will keep an eye on Medusa in the Lake Como house. When Alexis asks Helen, like, hey, these two women are literally different heights and literally have different facial features, won't anyone notice? And Helen literally says, no, men never notice these things. We'll just put a wig on her and some dirt on her face and men never notice these things. Okay, whatever. Super easy. Barely an inconvenience. How many times can I use that clip in this video? Count now on your phones.
Actually, it's gonna be super easy. Barely an inconvenience. Oh, really?
So 2 weeks later, I guess after the whole debacle of finding Medusa in Alexis's closet or whatever, chapter 49, we are in Medusa's POV, and this is 2 weeks after that. I guess somehow at some point, Medusa's hiding spot has been revealed, and now they're all in a big federation meeting. Athena is acting interim leader of the Olympians. Finally, some good fucking decisions in this book. Athena is like, okay, well, Medusa's innocent, so she's free to go. Woohoo, I guess. No one wants to interrogate, like, what circumstances led to Medusa's imprisonment in the first place. We don't know where Vico is, and we never hear about him again. We don't hear anything about, like, efforts to bring Theros and Zeus to justice somehow. Where have they gone? Nothing like that, so whatever. And you know, it was here that I questioned, like, why Medusa specifically? Because we learn that Medusa, of course, has apparently been disowned by Artemis as soon as she popped out of the womb with snakes on her head. So, like, we don't know where she's been. Like, was she out on the streets or something? And, like, but why Medusa specifically is because she was a Gorgon and nobody cares about Gorgons and nobody cares about women, even though she's the daughter of a chthonic house leader. Like, why frame Medusa specifically? We don't get any of that. Whatever. So she's freed. All charges have been lifted. However, there's a catch. She has to go to college, to ROU, Rhodes Olympian University, and obtain a mastery in fate studies, whatever that means. So Medusa's actually pretty down to go to school because, again, she's been disowned by Artemis, and apparently this university has been an all-Olympian university. But because of it being an all-Olympian university, Hades steps up and is like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Like, a chthonic has never attended university before because we're all stupid. I think she needs some bodyguards. We can't just send her out on her own, which is fair. So, who are the bodyguards, you might ask? Achilles and Patroclus are assigned Medusa's bodyguards for Spartan school. The whole room is in uproar. Patroclus doesn't want to do it, but Aphrodite, his mother, is like, bitch, you better do it. And he's like, okay, mom. And Athena is like, well, they can major in war studies, whatever that means. And I'm over here thinking, like, they can't both be her bodyguards and students because they're never going to get any work done. Also, remember their non-existent weapons manufacturing company? Yeah, good luck running it. Good luck if it hasn't been run to the ground already in this whole time. So Medusa's rightfully scared of Achilles and Patroclus, mostly because of the way they treated her, and also because guards in general traumatize her and freak her out because she was in prison. God only knows what happened to her and like how the guards treated her in prison. So she nominates Alexis to join her in Spartan College, and she's like, Alexis, you've always wanted to get a degree in math, right? And Alexis is like, I've always wanted to get a degree in math. So she agrees to join. And finally, everyone's like, okay, fine, no more people going to school. All four of you get to go to school. We're done. And the chapter ends with a little tidbit from Athena about how they're studying the mutating titans and have found nothing yet. Great. Helpful. Wow. So advanced. So cool. It's amazing how this society gets anything done. And the chapter ends with Patroclus doing the cut neck motion at Medusa. Like, fuck you. We're gonna make your life a living hell. And it's like, come on, are we supposed to root for this guy or what? Every time I think I hate this guy, he gives me a tiny nugget of something worth rooting for, but then he just takes it all away with his awful attitude. It's amazing how Achilles is still his boyfriend or whatever. We don't even know how they met. We don't even know why they like each other. They're just so devoted to each other or whatever. Anyway, chapter 50. Finally, this is the threesome all the way sex scene between Alexis, Charon, and Augustus. Yeah, it's just about what I expected. It wasn't a bad scene. It was pretty hot. But like after this book and the last book, all of their like, wow, we're gonna ruin you. We're gonna do so many depraved things to you. All the deranged things I'm thinking about doing to your mind and your body. I just want to take you and like do all these crazy things to you. And it was like, well, yeah, okay, like this was pretty, I don't know. It was kind of cool, but like after all that talk and then the scene that we got just kind of fell a little short of what the promises I was given. It was decently written. Alexis had a good time, whatever. Chapter 51. Yeah, it was fine. Let's move on. Oh yeah. Oh, before we move on, it was so funny. We don't have any more velvet wrap steel, unfortunately, but there's this one line in which Alexis mentions an unholy stench. And I'm like, oh no, they're stinky. They haven't had a proper shower. Yeah, all like the villainous, obsessiveness, like attributes assigned to them are just for show. I don't think it's meant for anything like actually villainous about them, anything actually psychopathic about them. Maybe it could have been something if like Alexis was like equally as freaky, but like she's kind of written like she doesn't know what she's doing. She's constantly humiliated. Also like verbally abused like for most of the first book. And like sure, like they gave her an ear. They gave her a graphing calculator. They tucked her into bed. Okay, these are like really small actions that could add up over time, but ultimately they don't really know Alexis. I don't really know Alexis. I don't really know these guys either, other than what they say they do, but then what they say they do don't really match their actions here. Whatever, so yeah, 51. 51, I don't know why it's all the way back here that this happens, but in chapter 51, they're cuddling or whatever, it's the morning after. Alexis opens up a bit more about her rough childhood, and Karen and Augustus reveal that they've kept her former foster father in their dungeon for her this whole time, and they leave her with the choice on whether or not to kill him. So Alexis chooses to kill him pretty easily. Yeah. Of course, her foster father is begging for mercy. Father John's always loved you. You've always been a good kid. Like, please let me go. But Alexis is like, nah, and kills him and reveals that she was the one who killed his wife. Remember, all the way back in book 1, she didn't realize it, but it was her blood torture powers that killed his wife, her foster mother, back when they were beating the shit out of her when she was 10 years old or 11 years old. Yeah, and then that's all the way at the end, so there's never really any like fallout or processing that happens after that, because we only have like 2 chapters left, and chapter 52 is in Patroclus's POV. He seems to have moved on from Alexis quite easily. He's like, well, Alexis and those 2 guys are in their wedded fucking bliss. I'm done with them. I'm never gonna be like them. So for some reason, however, in this chapter, it's him and Achilles who are bothering Medusa for whatever reason, taunting her and whatnot. But unfortunately, Patroclus is thinking thoughts that I am side-eyeing. And I'll just read a little bit to you here, in which it's crazy. I don't even know the flip-flopping that this man's brain goes through. So I'll read a little bit to you on the bottom of page 506. I said, move. Medusa shoved at my chest, and I laughed at how weak she was. Her nails dug into my chest. My skin prickled where she touched me, heat flushing across my sternum with disgust, and I retched away from her. Never lay your hands on me again, snake scum, I warned. She threw a punch, and I caught her hand, twisting her wrist painfully. Her bones creaked, embarrassingly fragile in my hand. She was all soft curves and long jet-black hair. There was nothing Spartan about her. Cronus, most humans were built stronger. I never met anyone so useless in my life. Alexis in the background is like, what about me? Someone should really protect her. I shook my head, refusing to acknowledge the ridiculous thought. How about you just stay away from me? Medusa glared, snakes rising higher. All of them focused on me as she tried to tug her arm out of my grip. She failed. Heinous memories clawed at my spine. I held onto her wrist tightly. You're nothing but a pathetic mutt. Stop crying. You won't survive Sparta, my Gorgon tutor snarled. Hands flashed in front of my face, drawing me back to the present. I'm here, M. They can't hurt you, Achilles signed. I nodded, feeling faint. Stop following me around, Medusa said haughtily, but for some reason I couldn't make myself release her. I can't, I whispered, still feeling out of sorts from the memories. Since we're your new bodyguards, I forced my lips into a cruel smile, even though I wanted to fall to my knees and scream, you're the reason we were tortured. She was found innocent, and it's a good thing the Olympians never got to her, because she wouldn't be able to withstand torture. Wasn't she in prison for like 18 years? 19 years? Oh, she wouldn't be able to withstand torture. We're back to this again, I see, in which the poor, useless, weak woman who turns out had a lifetime of trauma and pain. Nobody ever realizes that, and so they all assume she's weak and pathetic and worthless and wouldn't be able to do anything right. Back at it again at the Krispy Kreme! Yeah, so it's just like more thoughts of like, oh, she's stupid and weak and pathetic, but someone needs to protect her. And I'm like, get me out of here! Get me out of here! For some reason, he and Achilles do like PDA in front of her, and then she's the one that leaves. I don't know where they are, but I want to curl up and die. And then finally, chapter 53 is like less than 2 pages. Achilles quotes Dostoevsky again and admits that he's also interested in Medusa. And I'm like, oh no, get me out of here. Finally, we are at the end of the book. There is like a prophecy recap, I guess, once again, but that doesn't matter. So, oh yeah, and I totally forgot there was a bonus chapter because for some reason it's after the acknowledgements and it's supposed to be a funny epilogue. I don't even know. It's like very, I don't know, it's very kid cartoon, if I may say. It's not as fun as the last exclusive chapter that we got in the first book, in which I found it to be like a really funny, like Addams Family type of comedy in which like Persephone is like concerned for her daughter and Hades is like trying to help her out in his own way, and it works. But this one's like, imagine like Alexis and Augustus and Charon, they're on their own Titan slaying mission, but for some reason Charon, who's supposed to be like the best hunter of their generation, is like really goofy or whatever, and they do kill the Titan or whatever, and then Charon tries to teleport them teleport back home. But then there's something like he teleports to be right next to Karen and Alexis is like, oh my god, he teleported to us because we're his home. And I'm like, it's not as if like the teleport power is a home only button. Like we've seen them teleport to other places before. It's whatever. It doesn't matter. Poco closes us out with a scream, and then we're at the end of the book. Thank God. Thank God. Thank freaking God. Yeah, so I can't even begin to describe how disappointing that book was. Look, I wanted to like this, okay? I'm gonna be real clear with you. If you happen to be a watcher who's gotten this far and read the book and liked the book, or this book or the first one, I actually, against my whole brain, wanted to like this book with my whole heart, okay? I guess as time went on, when it came to Blood of Hercules, I guess like to me, like I think I mentioned this in the beginning of the video, is that like it settled into a sort of so bad it's funny kind of thing for me. Sort of similarly to Twilight. Like I love to watch and rewatch the movies because it's kind of so bad it's funny. Like at the time that Twilight came out, it was kind of ridiculous, it was kind of cringe, but as time went on, we all kind of like grew to enjoy it in our own ways. I doubt I would feel the same about the book. But back to this, whatever nugget of something that was in this book, it got glanced by so fast, and I'm over here like, wait, take me back to that. Every once in a while we get like an interesting tidbit of something. We get like a little bit of a something, or like a promise that was never kept from the first book. And a lot of it is just like things that are brought up but then don't matter again. Like how many times have I said, but that doesn't matter, that doesn't come up again, couldn't tell you. I couldn't tell you. Like there's the thing with the prophecies never interrogated. The whole premise of the first Percy Jackson book is that Percy gets this prophecy from the Oracle of Delphi, and he's like tossing and turning this prophecy around in his head, trying to figure it out, because like the point getting a Greek prophecy is that no matter how much you try to do to try and circumvent a prophecy, to try and beat the prophecy always comes true. Either let it happen or you fulfilled it on your own in trying to stop it. We get a prophecy, we never hear the prophecy again until the very end, and even then it's not within the story, it's only by fate. So is it for us? Except for us, the reader, we have to actually read the story. We don't remember the prophecy. I totally forgot there was a prophecy. So whatever, the prophecy, we have it, it doesn't matter. There's Hermos and Agatha. Agatha with one boob bigger than the other. I don't know who they are. They're not relevant to the story because they don't actually cause it to change in any meaningful way. They're there, and then they're gone. And then Drex is there, and apparently he still sucks and he doesn't change in any meaningful way. He's still just like a dumb Olympian. The Chthonics are still so accepting of him somehow. Like we don't know what's going on with Drex. How if he's having trouble assimilating into this new culture, because I guess he was, I think he's supposed to be like a half human. So I guess he was at some point like raised in the human world and then brought over to the Spartan world, but then now he has to go through everything all over again, trying to assimilate to the Chthonic world because the Olympians don't accept him for whatever reason, because I guess they don't care about their population numbers anymore, and they don't care about protecting the women anymore, and they don't care about babies anymore, they don't care about Theros anymore. And we don't know where the Titans came from. We don't know if they're zombies. We don't know if they're some other thing, and we don't even get a hint as to why they're mutating all of a sudden. Yeah, I've touched upon the issue I find with the romance between Augustus and Karen and Alexis. Just overall, very disappointing. I really was gunning for Alexis having her vengeance moment, having her Joker moment, like, fuck these guys, I'm taking back my agency, I'm fighting for my own hand, you know, that kind of thing. And it would have really been something if, like, I don't know, maybe Alexis did manage to, like, murder divorce them, but then at some point, since apparently Augustus and Karen are endgame, then, like, well, now they're no longer married, so they can try and meet each other at their own terms now and like start the new marriage on their own terms instead of a forced one. Because like, oh, I could have totally accepted, like, because the whole point of them getting married, as much as they say, oh, we wanted to possess you and blah blah blah, really it was the marriage law. It was the marriage law that pushed them to do it in the first place, because they do seem to be the type of guys who would just marry her right away with or without the law. They could have probably like found a way to circumvent or like get a loophole, another loophole around the law in which like they've been murder divorced, but they were like, well, we were technically married before 26. It says nothing about staying married at 26, blah, blah, blah. So that could have like freed them up to better explore the relationship on their own terms rather than this like forced marriage law type of deal. And you know, like, we've been told that they're cruel, we've been told that they're villainous, we've been told that they're psychopathic, and you could chalk this up to character development, except I felt like it was a bit too easy, not very well earned. I never really feel like there's a point in which they're struggling being nice. They're very considerate of Alexis's feelings, they always respect her wishes, perhaps detrimentally. Like, we could talk about how like this is worship rather than genuine romance, but well, instead it's like oh, we were cruel to you and now we don't want to be cruel to you because we want you for you, except who is she? I don't know if they ever really gotten to know Alexis. I mean, she opens up a little bit to them, but not really in an in-depth way about how like she was abused as a foster child. Like she doesn't open up to them about her disabilities because she's afraid of them for still a good portion of this book. And like Augustus used to be her teacher, so that's why he knows that she's good at math. But like, does she want to be a mathematician? Like, I don't think she's ever like said that out loud to him, that like, hey, Carl Gauss is my idol and I want to discover something new in algebra before the age of 21. She doesn't say that to him. He just knows that she's good at math and that's why he got her a calculator and she loves it so much. Okay, your dad can get you a calculator. Honestly, I don't really understand what actions Karen and Augustus take other than having sex with her that like really solidify that they are in a romantic relationship with each other. Like tucking you into bed, giving you a calculator or your ear. I'm pretty sure Charlie would have given her his ear. I'm pretty sure Drex could have given her a calculator. Helen probably could have tucked her into bed too. Like, what makes these actions unique to Karen and Augustus in regards to how they feel about Alexis and what they know about Alexis that really makes their relationship stand out as like the romantic one here? Couldn't tell you. And I mentioned this before too, and I want to touch upon it, is that the four main male characters are also severely underdeveloped. Frankly, character assassinated, if I may, because at least like we got some insight into like how they operated back in the first book. I think each of them had like one POV chapter. We understood how August felt about women. We understood how Karen had like mental health issues very briefly because it was mostly Alex's POV book. But now we have multiple POVs here, and yet I feel like I don't know any more than I did then about each of these four main male characters. We get tiny little nuggets about their lives before Alexis, how they all have like trauma from being tortured in some way or another, from mommy issues and from daddy issues or whatever. But like, you know, they're supposed to be the heirs and heiresses, or some of them are. Like, does Karen want to get back into his mother's good graces? Does he say, fuck it, I don't care? I don't really know. I think there was something about how like he's been staying with Augustus this whole time, ever since he got kicked out at 18. I really want to know more about his and Augustus's relationship. I just know that they like seem to be best bros and share everything with each other, but then like, what is it about Augustus specifically that Karen felt like he'd go to him for safety when he was kicked out of his parents' house? And how come they haven't had any tender loving gay sex between each other? And why do they only like to share partners between them? I mean, that could just be me wanting some more tender loving gay sex, but whatever, that doesn't matter. Like, why can't they feel like complete on their own? I don't know. How does Ares feel about this, who's Augustus's father? How does Artemis feel? I guess she's fine with it. What is Artemis gonna do? Because she's disowned Karen, but like I guess hasn't chosen anyone else to be her successor. I still don't know why the heir and heiress system exists. Like I mentioned in the previous video, they're all technically immortal and incapable or capable of dying. I'm not sure. We don't know why Karen was signed up before he was 19 years old for the SGC. And oh yeah, like I mentioned before, we don't know where Patroclus came from. We get a tiny tidbit that he used to be a human in the human world, spoiled rich kid before he was picked up. If he had such a cushy life beforehand, why don't any of them escape, frankly? Like why don't any of them escape from Spartan society? Because it seems to just be all sorts of fucked up. Patroclus, he's picked up by his Spartan mom for some reason. Gorgons are torturing him, and yet like has Aphrodite felt nothing to try and help him or like explain to him like torture is the way of the world, son. We don't know where Achilles came from. He's also presumably has a human mother somewhere, somewhat. Was he also like found at like a certain age and picked up and taken to Spartan society? Was he raised in Spartan society from the get-go? How did he and Patroclus meet? Because now we no longer have the Iliad origin story. Now we have this origin story, except we don't know what this origin story is. We don't know how they fell in love with each other. We don't know how long they've been together. We don't know why they like each other. Because Patroclus seems frankly pathetic and his emotions are not consistent, but Achilles would do anything for him. Frankly, very, very little in the tragic backstory department. Not even like one scene in which like Augustus and Karen open up to Alexis about their tragic backstories that could have like be more of a factor in like Alexis's changing opinions of them. We don't get that. Please don't get me started on Medusa. So Medusa, as I just read to you at the end of the book, is now, I guess, the new object of interest for Achilles and Patroclus. Look, okay, like in her Greek myth origin stories, Medusa was either born a monster with her two sisters, I don't remember their names, where she was born a monster with her head full of snakes and her eyes full of stone. But then I think it was Homer or something, I forgot who, whichever Greek poet, decided to give her her most famous Greek origin story in which she was a priestess of Athena. Poseidon either seduced her or took her by force, and thus she was punished by Athena and turned into a monster with a head full of snakes and an eyes full of stone. And Medusa in general has become very much like a feminist icon in the subsequent years, especially as a symbol of victim blaming, a symbol of how women who have been wronged by men are the ones who turn monstrous. And yet here in this one, she's put right back into Alexis's place. Her characterization doesn't feel much different from Alexis, honestly. She's, how to say, she's different only by which Alexis tends to think her sarcasm and think all her weird thoughts, whereas Medusa yaps all her weird thoughts and also thinks her weird thoughts because she has the power of fate. So far, I think what the power of fate looks like for her is like seeing symbols in the world around her, and she thinks it all leads to something, which reads to me more like psychosis of some sort rather than fate or whatever. Like, but I guess the point is that she uses the symbols around her to like determine the future or whatever, except we don't actually see her use it in this book. And I was under the impression that this was a duology. Well, I mean, I guess this is a good time to segue into the fact that I did attend the release event for this book at Barnes & Noble back when it came out in October. Jasmine Moss was there along with Bryn Weaver, who was the author of Butcher and Blackbird, and they hosted a panel together, and I really tried to be gracious in my mind, and I did have a good time. I chatted with my seatmate, and I got this lovely art from a few lovely ladies there. I decided to go to this for two reasons. One, to try and understand, hopefully get some answers from the author as to how this series came to be, and also that maybe the book will be good. I kind of didn't want to bother waiting for the library. I just thought it would be an interesting opportunity all around. Look, I keep saying in all my other videos that I don't like to bring up the author. I want to understand the text on its own terms. However, my curiosity as to the person behind the series was immeasurable. And honestly, I don't want to rate the event or the contents of their interview / talk, but it's ranked pretty low. Look, I don't know how to express enough that I really went into this trying to understand, trying to come not just to the book's terms, but also to the author's terms. Where is she coming from when she's creating this story? I was really disappointed that it was less about like the craft of the book itself and more like a discussion on tropes, vibes, what they liked, not necessarily about the story itself, why Jasmine Moss decided to go with this direction rather than another direction, what she wanted to explore in the story in regards to Greek mythology, in regards to Alexis as a character. I don't recall any of that. I just recall the amount of times the word vibes was brought up. I didn't film the entirety of the interview / talk, but like, I swear the amount of times I caught the word vibes on its own could probably reach the double digits easy.
Can you give everyone a synopsis, but only in tropes? Like your elevator pitch, but only using tropes.
Okay. Extreme enemies to lovers.
Yep.
Sarcasm. Violence. I don't think I'm good at this.
I think you're doing great.
Violence.
Some forced proximity.
Forced proximity. I didn't know that one.
Yeah.
Yes. Who did this to you? Yeah, that's the best
Good
one. Yeah.
save.
Who did this to you? Yeah, that's my favorite one.
So did you have to do a lot of research then to go back through the classics and look at like Hercules and all the trials and all that to craft this, or how did you approach the research for it?
I feel like, obviously I did research, but it was more of because I was trying to write more like ancient Greek tropes, like the big pictures from all the years of school. So I didn't like focus too much on the minutia, but then if I would research, I would like reread the myth of Hercules. And like reread some myths online and try to like take inspo. But I tried not to actually research too hard because it was more of like me trying to twist it. Yeah, so it was more just like touch and go. And more of like what I already knew from and like taking on, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And what was the inspiration, or was it something that you always wanted to like, what was the spark, I guess, because I know what the inspiration is, like the classics, but what was the spark that...
For Hercules?
Yeah.
I was thinking of, so I love like fairy tale retellings, like fantasy retellings, like I love those, But I feel like there's been a lot of, like, everyone's done the classic ones. And then I loved Hercules growing up. That was like one of my favorite movies. And I really just was like, oh, that would be a good one to do, like, I guess it was like a fairy tale in my mind. And then originally I was like, oh, I'll do a girl disguised as a boy. And then my mom was reading it and she was like, why? And I was like, I don't know, because it's a good trope. Like, I love it. And then it just kind of made more sense. It felt more organic. Like, why not just make her a girl? So that's what I did. So that's why. It was more of like me trying to do a fairy tale that I enjoyed more. I feel like that's where I'm the most, like, try to find a balance. I go too extreme. Right. I feel like that's also the hardest with characters. As you know, I tend to like an extreme enemies to lovers. I never think it's that extreme. I'm always like, this is normal. But then other people are like, oh, I was crying. I was like, so it's like trying to tone it down, I think is my hardest part. Like, find the balance.
Okay. You do such a great job of hitting the balance. And I think in the romance, like, for me, it never reads like toxic in the run up. Like, you know, as the romance as they're kind of progressing from enemies to lovers, it doesn't feel like toxic.
People think it's toxic.
Really? I don't think. Maybe
I don't think it's toxic either. That's the problem. I feel like we're too extreme. Do you guys think it's toxic? Yeah, no. I don't know. I didn't think. I actually had like an older woman in France, and she was like, I cried the whole time. They were so mean. I was like, I'm so sorry. I thought it was a little tension, like a little spicy, like yeah. So people, yeah, I feel like that's where people are.
In France, they ask me if I'm disturbed.
No.
Like,
The men or the women?
like everyone. And what about like romance book influences? Did you have any major ones when you were starting out?
Did anyone read Maximum Ride growing up? I was obsessed with that. Like, I used to lay in bed, like, wishing I could sprout wings and fly away. Like, I would read that through, so that was, like, huge, like, Maximum Ride. And I don't know if anyone remembers when Fang, like, kissed that girl, and the other girl in, like, the high school. I was, like, 4th grade, and I was devastated. I was like, how do I go forward from this? But, so it's, that really influenced, and then I'm a big romance reader. Like, huge. And fantasy, so I just read all the time.
Yeah.
So it's just like all the vibes that I like, and then I think I've read so much that like are more extreme because I've read so much that I want to try to like.
You need to push the boundaries.
I need I'm like kind of broken. Like I need more. For the endorphin rush.
Are you disturbed?
Probably.
You're in good company.
Yeah, I love it.
So for romance, we're gonna play a little game of this and that. For
Okay.
romance tropes.
Okay.
Grumpy Sunshine or Friends to Lovers?
Grumpy Sunshine.
Okay.
I love when they're grumpy.
Grumpy Sunshine or Hercule?
I wanted to know what character was most influential and what steered the plot. Like, what character most influenced the plot and why?
Of Bonds.
Either or.
Okay.
Blood or Bonds.
Definitely Alexis. Like, I feel like she steers the plot, obviously, because she's, like, the main character. Like, she kind of has to steer the plot. But I would say other people that kind of is Karen, obviously. Kron. I don't even know how to say it. That's why I say Karen. I don't know. I feel like he really steers it with his vibes. Okay, if that makes sense.
I was also slightly concerned for Jasmine Moss's seemingly constant sleep deprivation in regards to writing this book. A handful of times she's brought up being sleep deprived at 2 a.m. trying to write this book before the deadline. Because I want to circle back around to this, is that like pacing and plot progression of the story is absolutely abysmal. Like, what did I just recap to you chapter by chapter? I assumed that the entire arc of this book would center around the gladiator games, and yet we don't even get that until more than halfway into the book already. I cannot understand of an author, or let alone an editor, who would allow the premise to start halfway in the book. So like by the time the SGC is supposed to start, I completely forgot it was going to happen. And I thought, oh, when I first read about Medusa breaking out of prison, I thought, oh, she's going to haunt the narrative and pull strings from the shadows. But the plot twist of Medusa actually being Ceres the whole time was less of a clever misdirect and more like the author just not showing us anything and expecting us to be surprised. It's like, wow, you definitely didn't expect to see that coming, did you? And I'm like, well, no, but also I'm kind of pissed. Because to be honest with you, the first time that I read this book, I totally forgot that Alexis wound up in some mysterious underground place at the end of chapter 3. And then when she suddenly reveals that she figured out Zeus's whole plan, and turns out she was in the prison underground this whole time, and this whole time had secretly been hiding Medusa under everyone's noses, including the reader's nose. And so I'm just left there holding the bag, being as confused as everyone else and not going like, wow. I'm just like, oh, okay. Because just not showing us things and expecting us to be shocked is not very clever. It would have been more clever if it was hiding in plain sight this whole time, but this isn't the kind of book that needs a plot twist. I don't understand why the plot twist was needed. We could have been along with Alexis for the entire journey of trying to hide this woman who was apparently innocent this whole time. Could have gone on like a plot A, plot B progression in which Alexis is A, trying to fight in the SGC and survive, B, trying to find evidence that this innocent woman was framed for her attempted assassination, and then C, I guess Karen and Augustus are here and trying to be good husbands or whatever the fuck. I don't really care about them. Of course, I'm the type of reader who wants to, read about interesting character dynamics and like twisty turny plots that like say something about a greater theme. Of course, if this was just a fun book in which sexy times are happening left, right, and center, then I would have at least had fun. But I did not have fun. Instead, I'm left wondering what could have been this whole time, because I guess I was hoping for Medusa to be more of an antagonistic character, because I guess wanting two women to be character foils against each other to, I guess, explore a greater theme about like how society treats women, in which one woman, Alexis, who was raised in the human world and abused her whole life, and yet raised out of poverty by way of her bloodline, versus this other woman, Medusa, who has also been abused and tortured her whole life, and yet she is further disparaged because of her bloodline. And as like a closing point of Alexis's quest for vengeance, she can encounter Medusa, possibly even agree with her in wanting to bring down Spartan society and its cruelty towards women and its hypocrisies in treating them right. And then Alexis could, either decide to join her right at that moment, or at some point decide, hey, actually killing people is wrong. As much as this place sucks, I don't want to be responsible for more death, and then so on and so forth, can complete her character journey from there. But this book doesn't care about that. And it doesn't even seem to want sexy times either, because I thought we'd be getting that left, right, and center instead of any other story, but I guess we got this, which is a sad mishmash of pacing and character progression plot lines that are just picked up and dropped and scattered about like glass shards in the sand. A part of me, of course, wants to say it's all the author's fault, that she's incapable of writing a good story. I don't want to say that. I'm not saying that. Part of me wants to, but I'm not saying that that's the end-all be-all of like why this book is so bad, in my opinion. Recently, I watched a video from the SBU English Club in which they went to Y'all Fest, which is a young adult festival out in North Carolina, in which they particularly went to follow Alex Astor, the author of Lightlark, because they also think that the books aren't very good, but they can't help but be curious as to why and what is Alex Astor's whole thing. Perhaps Jasmine Moss is my Alex Astor, because that video in which they went to Y'all Fest and attended a couple of panels in which Alex Astor was a part of really kind of opened my eyes into the ways of the publishing industry as it so happens to be in its current state. It's not just a matter of authors and readers, it's also a matter of publishers. And this really goes to show, and I never really realized it until now, but people have brought up before, like publishing has become fast fashion now. In combination with reading this book and watching that video, I think I understand how fast fashion really plays into this book and other such bad books dressed up all pretty. So the fast in the fast fashion part that I want to talk about, I learned from the SBU English Club's video on Y'all Fest, in which Alex Astor, among other authors, disparaged the speed in which they are expected to churn out content, expected to churn out new books. God only knows if authors only have so much time to write their stories. God only knows how much time editors have to even edit their stories properly, because just churning shit out doesn't lend well to exploring themes in depth, developing characters, developing storylines. It's just kind of churned out and on to the next phase because they had to meet a deadline. They're under pressure from their publishers. It all comes back to late stage capitalism. And of course, the fashion approach is not just, pretty covers and sprayed edges. It's also, I believe, to be a tropes first approach into storytelling nowadays. So of course, it's not lost on all of us that we seem to be in a trend following first approach tropes first approach. We don't know what the book's about, but we know it has grumpy sunshine, and if you touch her, you die. Please buy it. And being a trend follower, by the time you're aware of the trend's already gone. So that's why, in desperation to chase the trend, and in the crunch deadline that these authors have been imposed upon, the quality of the story suffers for it all the more. Sure, vampires are trending, or romantasy is trending, or dystopians are trending, but if your heart's not really into that type of story, then your story's gonna suffer for it. And being tropes forward isn't the way to go either, because you can't build a story from tropes alone. A tropes first approach to storytelling isn't conducive to creating a good story with good foundations. In my mind, tropes emerge naturally as you create the story you want to create, you want to build, the story with themes that you want to explore. Tropes emerge naturally from them. But when you force tropes onto a story, then the tropes die on the vine. It's not sustainable on its own. And if you really want a trope to be in your story, then you really have to work like ass backwards to build the foundation for that trope to stand upon. Because it's not enough to say, touch or you die. Okay, in what context? In what scenario? Are we talking in real life? Are we talking in a fantasy setting? Is she a princess? Is she a peasant? Is the other character royalty? Is he not royalty? Is he saying this knowing that he'll win? Is he saying this despite knowing that he might lose? That informs what kind of scenario this is, in which falls under the touch or you die trope. Because a lot of things can qualify for that trope, but you can't just have that and then what? To wrap this up, because I've been filming this all day, is that there is no one person to blame for what this book has become. It could be the author, in which all she does is vibes. Literally, one person in the audience dared to ask, hey, why did you name the snake Nyx? And the answer was vibes.
Is there a reason why you named Nyx Nyx, knowing that Nyx is the goddess of darkness?
I mean, knowing why, like at the time when I do stuff for the names, I always look them up. Like I always like to look up a name and what it means. So most likely I was probably like going through all the people and I thought it was the coolest one. I do love like Nike too, but the problem is like Nike. So you can't really like do that. It's like, oh, Nike, okay. But I do love like Wing and Nike. So it's probably too, like I probably wanted to do like Nike, like victory, goddess of victory. So then I was like Nyx, because it was like also cool. So that's why.
And I'm like, please, that can't be all. But maybe Occam's razor, it just is. It's just that. So I can only ask of this. I can't tell publishers what to do except what I can tell them with my wallet, which is I can't stand to buy this anymore. This was a mistake. I shouldn't have bought this. Honestly, I wouldn't have spent $5 on this. I mean that in the kindest way possible, that I would not spend more than $5 on this. That's just how the quality is to me. I can only hope that publishers get out of their own asses and stop, spraying sparkly edges and give us terrible content, but whatever. I can't tell them what to do. What I can tell authors to do is to hopefully put some more thought into things. But of course, if they're under pressure from their publishers to meet deadlines under crushing expectations without being able to put more thought into their stories beyond what they are capable of doing within a certain deadline, then who am I to judge on your situation, because I have no idea. I can only pray that you put more thought into this beyond the surface level explorations of your characters and stories, and to maybe pick a theme and stick with it and try to explore it in your own observations, in your own ways, with your own unique perspective through your characters that hopefully have developed beyond more than just a few handful of key singing phrases for the main character, who also is either really badass or wildly humiliated, depending on the situation. And I can only hope for readers to hopefully shake things up a little. I was talking about it in one of my library classes the other day, is that that as a book reviewer, I am either your ally or your accomplice. And perhaps what you need is not necessarily what you want. I hope to be your ally in saying that we need to read different things sometimes. I think what I've observed in the Jasmine Moss book event is confirming of what I've already suspected for some time now, in which a lot of readers now are new readers. And because they're new readers, they have stuck to what they liked and have stuck with it. From what I recall of the Jasmine Moss talk, I believe she talked about how I think it was during the pandemic, she got into reading Kindle Unlimited books and started writing her own, and thus became the Psycho Shifters series, which is her first series, and now this one, the Villains of Lore series. What I've observed from Kindle Unlimited books is that anyone can publish on Amazon, and also those books are typically like $1 or $2 or $5. I don't know. I'm not on Kindle Unlimited. But having read only apparently Kindle Unlimited books, all she knows how to write, I guess, is Kindle Unlimited like books. And so that is what I mean to say. I hope to be your ally in saying we need to read different books, because I feel like Jaizen Masa's story can apply to a lot of new readers in which they got into reading recently, perhaps during the pandemic, in which we've seen a lot of increased interest in books. Because of that, we've seen an interest in only the same types of books, romanticises in particular, and that's what's gotten popular nowadays. However, in reading the same things all the time, I feel like we're not really interrogating how quality has really slipped in recent years. Maybe it's because something monopolizing on the publishing industry has led to a lack of competition, or something TikTok algorithm has only promoted the most popular stuff, and therefore what is most popular is what publishers want, because they want that popularity to turn into sales numbers. Maybe it's all of those things in which readers read this, publishers give it, publishers give faster, publishers cut corners and cut time in order to get thing out faster so thing can be bought by reader, and then thing will be forgotten for the next thing. Anyway, that was a huge ramble. So what I'm going to end on, and I hope to end soon because I'm on my 5th battery, is hopefully you watching this read more than romantasy. But if you find yourself and look back on your Goodreads list or your Storygraph list or whatever, you find that you've read nothing but romantasy or mostly romantasy, I encourage you to break out of your mold a little bit and break out of your comfortable genres. I understand in this current state of things that we want escapism and we want something sweet to turn to at the end of the day. And you're right, sure, you deserve something sweet at the end of the day. It doesn't have to be romantasy. It can be a comic book, it can be a manga. Maybe if you're not into that, you can try something different still than a romantasy. You can try something cozy. You can try an adventure story, something contemporary that doesn't necessarily involve romance. Or maybe if you do want romance, you can try a different flavor of romance, like historical romances or a classic romance such as Jane Austen books. Heck, maybe if you want, you can read nonfiction. You can read a comedy book. Is there an actor or a famous person that you're really interested in and admire? Maybe they have a memoir out and you can read that and learn more about them. What I'm hoping for is to help readers cultivate a healthier brain, because in my mind, diverse reading is like diverse eating, and that gives you a healthier brain. And I think I'm gonna just close it out with that catchphrase. I hope you've made it to this point without getting mad or something like that, and I hope you liked this video. This has been a challenging one, by far the most challenging one, because I just kind of wanted to stay as far away from this book as I possibly could. But now that I've done filming it, I think I can finally edit this and put this to rest on YouTube. So thank you so much. Please like and subscribe if you haven't already. Let me know what books you think would be cool to recommend to fellow readers in the comments below. I don't know, maybe other Greek myth retellings that don't involve romance, maybe. I don't know. I'll probably reread Percy Jackson, and I'll probably go finally play Hades 2 after this, because goddamn, being a library science student is a lot of work. So with that out of the way, kiss your fandom friends goodnight, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!